What up, guys? Welcome to the Audacity Network, and today we have another episode of The Sit Down. Today I have a special guest on the channel, the first permanently banned person everywhere, a geopolitical analyst, filmmaker. Welcome to the show, Ryn Dwsn.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for not being afraid.
Well, I mean, we have our own website now, so I was like, I'll just throw it on there.
There you go. And I think Twitter's safe now.
Yeah.
With Elon, maybe.
Yeah, so I met you the first time, what was it, on a Sneeko stream?
Yeah, I wasn't like invited. They just demanded I come on. And then, yeah, it ended up that way.
So how did you get banned off of everything?
I mean, I started getting banned back in like 2005. I lost America Online, which for the younger people, that used to be the internet, was AOL. And I got kicked off MySpace. They erased me there. And I believe, because they don't tell you why, but I think it was because of my work on the September 11th terrorist attacks. And because there's a lot of nonsense about those attacks from various people that is not censored. But I think you get flack when you're over the target. And so that did it the first time. I was banned on YouTube and brought back again 5 times. And it's funny because on the 4th one, they banned me. No strikes, no anything. I said, okay. I flew to Ireland and physically met them in the headquarters, which they didn't like. As soon as I landed in the UK first because I thought, well, I've never been there. Let's go see that before I go to Ireland. I get an email from YouTube. We've heard you're going to our offices in the UK. I'm like, you heard wrong. Because I was actually going to Dublin. But I talked to engineers and stuff outside and explained my case, have an anti-war channel, and they restored it like a week later. But I didn't like this cat and mouse game because they would ban you. I'd do appeals. I'd get it back because I never broke the rules. But then they finally perma-banned it and never returned it. And I couldn't go back and get it again because of COVID. They wouldn't let you travel. And then too many years passed, so it's not even retrievable. So that was that. And I was banned on Twitch, Discord, PayPal. I got banned in PayPal back in 2014. I got banned on there again. They banned my wife. They even banned my babysitter. I make alt accounts. They'd ban those. You name it.
Your babysitter? How did they find your babysitter?
Okay. I don't know. What? They realized, I think they just, I was using her channel, but it was my voice and stuff, and they figured it out.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
So you used her channel and they figured it out. But.
Because I could never write my name. I would switch the R and the D around my first and last name, Diana Rawson, all these things. On Twitter, within a week, I'd get banned every time. Facebook banned. Facebook did a weird thing, and I think a lot of people had this happen. They would get perpetual 30-day bans. So you'd be suspended. You could come back. As soon as you made one post, they'd ban you again for another 30 days. So that went on for years, and I just didn't bother opening it after a while. And then I just discovered one day it was banned. I just got banned off Instagram again. I was like, ooh, it's been a few years.
Oh, they took me out too.
Let me try.
Yeah.
And I haven't even posted anything. I just got one so I could see other Instagrams.
Yeah.
Because now they make you sign in with Facebook, which I'm not allowed to have, or Instagram, which I'm not allowed to have. So I made one because I want to see my cousin's baby and stuff. Because that's what they do. They cut you off from family. I'm overseas. They're all in the U.S. So I made an Instagram to see her kid and got to see it, and then it was gone.
If you make like a burner account, do they come for you?
Yeah, like within 24 hours.
Wow.
Yep.
So you said it was so what was like your first original work? Like when did you start doing YouTube, analyzing the political space?
Yeah, I always had other jobs, but just on the side I wrote, back in the day, there used to be forums. It was like where everybody went was on forums. There was no social media yet. And so I had this thing on AOL, just Rise Rants, FTP site, and they even shut that down. They shut my whole account down. And this is part of why I moved to Japan. I was getting death threats, and so I was like, what the heck? But I found out that if you look at the people who get banned, you look at the topics, the topics you're not allowed to say. You can't talk about the Mexican beer when that was going around.
Mexican beer?
Starts with C.
Don't get it.
Corona. I was just
Oh,
It's like-
okay.
if this
COVID.
is safe,
This is on my website.
Oh,
so it's
okay.
fine,
Yeah, you couldn't talk
Go
about COVID.
crazy,
You can't
yeah.
talk about election fraud. You can't talk about Epstein spying. You can't talk about the casting couch, which is all coming out now all of a sudden with P. Diddy and all. But we had those stories out
Really?
7 years ago. 7 years ago, Drake, Diddy, all of them.
Okay, so you had casting couch,
You can't talk about that.
and that's like the Hollywood stuff, like the Diddy,
That stuff is not just a bunch of perverts. That stuff is to compromise people with influence so they can't get out of line.
Okay. So if they were going to do that to me, let's just say, like, what would it, like, I don't understand.
Well, you're
what
not
happened.
doing that. So like they'll probably take your YouTube channel eventually.
Yeah.
Like I think you've been demonetized, right?
Mhm.
Like that's coming.
Mhm.
That's coming for all you guys. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do because they're afraid of people with reach.
Mhm.
So to change the system, you need 4 things. You have to have knowledge, and you have to have reach. It helps to have wealth, and you have to have courage. If you don't have courage, the other 3 don't matter.
Mhm.
But of those 4, the hardest one was reach in the past.
Mhm.
Because they just own the TV stations, the papers, that's it. You don't have any reach. Doesn't matter what you know. Doesn't matter how brave you are. That doesn't matter. You couldn't get reach. Black Swan. Social media comes out. And they thought it'd be, oh, look at me. Look at pictures of my food. But what happens slowly on MySpace and Facebook is political content, the dissident content that you could never hear before was out there. They tried to cover that by like saturating the web with conspiracy theories like the cuckoo kind, the Alex Jones kind.
So you see Alex Jones as cuckoo.
He's absolutely nuts. There's no earthquake machines. You know, Sandy Hook happened. Like this stuff.
Right.
Now but what would happen is sometimes he'd be right, like a broken clock, but he just exaggerates it to the point where it doesn't matter. And it like his job is to take a real issue and dump crazy all over it. So doubting the government story 9/11 is good, but then acting like all the stuff he adds to it is just bogus. And it's the people he elevates. He had Fetzer on, he had loose change on these airplane deniers and just weirdos, you know. It turns it into kind of a circus act. And he's always been, until recently, he's done a swerve. He's like against Israel all of a sudden. This dude used to say prayers for Netanyahu, the prime minister, on Christmas Eve. As recently as October, he talked about Moabbing. That's the mother of all bombs. In rows. Carpet bomb Moab inch by inch, Gaza City. Even if you moved all the people out, you can't just blow up everyone's home and make millions of people homeless. Like, that's okay. Right? But he was a hardcore Zionist. And then suddenly, I think he sees which way the wind's blowing because the whole world's against this war. And now he's like completely changed. But that guy... No, and a lot of people go, Alex, open the door for me. You would have found other people right away. He's like a 9/11 dragnet. Building 7. He says all this stuff. It's just like, I have to spend like an hour debunking the talking points that they've heard from these people before I can even start to explain what happened. And then other people, the whole topic's become a tar baby because they've already heard the Alex Jones stuff and they think, oh, I know what that is, and just roll their eyes. I go, no, we're not, that is not what I'm going to say. Like, I know what you think about 9/11 conspiracies, but that's gotten in the way. That's what was really good when I was on Fresh and Fit, to like a major show, even though it wasn't really a political show. I mean, kind of, but it's like Manosphere mostly, to lay it all out, clips, and prove the case. And, you know, thank Myron for that. But it's hard because that should have happened on a major political show. Instead, it's on these like, I don't know what they call it. It's like they do just political things sometimes, but mostly it's teaching men how to behave, teaching girls not to be whores, that kind of stuff. There's nothing wrong with that either. But like, where are the podcasts? They're scared. They were all scared to talk about Israel until like the last month or so, where it's just become so indefensible. So many babies getting murdered, so many kids getting killed that they just can't defend that anymore. And one of the big reasons is Twitter. People for the first time are seeing what war looks like. When this happened in Yemen, when this happened in Iraq, they didn't see all the starving children. They didn't see them. It was censored and you couldn't put it anywhere. And, you know, X and maybe Telegram too have changed the game. Elon's a stud.
So, okay, because I don't know the ins and outs of like that. So you said the casting couch, 9/11,
You can't talk about that. Any of these, like these
COVID,
pedophile rings, Jeffrey Epstein.
pedo rings. Okay.
Yeah. Any kind of the way they compromise people with blackmail is very sensitive because if they lose that, they lose control. There's two main methods, bribery and blackmail.
If they can't compromise people with those things.
That's why
But
the
now-
FBI had a file on John Lennon. They have to get these people because, like it or not,
John Lennon.
who had the Beatles? If you look at people who have, sorry, you're young. He was the singer of the Beatles.
Okay. So they had a file on him?
They did.
Because they were trying to blackmail him? But
no, they couldn't blackmail him. And they were like, he ended up getting murdered.
Oh, he was the one that was shot.
Yeah. When, like if I fired 6 shots and not one of them hit Yoko Ono, what the hell?
Who's Yoko Ono?
Yoko is his Japanese wife that they blame for breaking up the Beatles. So everyone hates on her.
Oh.
We call her Hiroshima's Revenge. I have dry humor. Dry humor is like food. Not everybody gets it.
Okay, but freaking. Okay, so.
They worry about that. Though.
I guess
you think celebrities are not that important? Who listens to them? Like
everybody.
Everybody.
No, but my question is like, how do you know? So you know, like if you're this. What did you do before? You were.
Well, I've done all manner of different jobs.
Yeah.
But like I was teaching in Japan when I guess got recognition for what I was doing. I would write about stuff out of spite, thinking this will never reach enough people, but I'm going to put it down anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I was so upset about the Iraq War, and what I uncovered there was following the September 11th attacks, there was this biological attack using anthrax, and it kind of came and went in the news. But if you remember, well, maybe you can't remember, you're so young, but like some of you remember, the legal reason to go to war was they were saying Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, which means weapons that kill indiscriminately, like poison gas.
Right.
Bombs,
Yeah,
like
I remember that.
And specifically, which that means they're in violation of UN Resolution 1441, which after the first Gulf War stipulated that you're not allowed to have these weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't have those weapons, which we all know now. But one of the types of biological agents they were allegedly supposed to have and use was anthrax. And what happened was a bunch of neoconservatives started saying, oh, the people who did 9/11 and sent that anthrax, they got it from Iraq. And how do we know? Because there was this meeting in Prague and senior Iraqi officials were witness passing off anthrax to Mohammed Atta. Mohammed Atta was the guy on Flight 11. He's like the ringleader of the terrorists. None of it was true. There was no meeting in Prague. So I looked and found that Czech intelligence was already denying this. I go, what is the source for this? Well, they said September 18th, 2001, it was unnamed. Just, U.S. intelligence sources. It ended up James Woolsey, the former director of the CIA, the DCI, we call him. Someone Clinton had during the Clinton administration. They hated each other, but he had to bring him in because Clinton was compromised up to here, maybe here. James Woolsey got this information from a meeting that didn't take place, and his sources were Israeli security forces. I go, oh, wow, the Israelis told you this. And the notes on the anthrax said, death to America, death to Israel. I said, well, they're lying.
Well, I guess, because how did you know that? Because you were teaching in Japan. Like how?
Because I'm autistic, man. No, I'm not really, but like that's what they say. Like, I looked at it and said, Iraq doesn't have WMDs. Because they had them, they'd use them. They're already, they're going to kill you. They killed his kids. They didn't have any WMDs. It was clear.
Mm-hmm.
And the Israelis are going to lie about Iraq. They've been trying to get a war with Iraq in all their policy papers since the 90s. The whole reason we went to war the first time was because of Israel. And then you look at who each person was that were claiming all these different lies. They had several of them. They said he had chemical weapons under his palaces. That came from William Safire of the New York Times. He got a Guardian of Zion award. This is the Israelis give. He had Judith Miller, who's a serial liar about Iraq her whole career. She blamed the Oklahoma City bombing on some Iraqi guy. Mm-hmm. She blamed the World Trade Center bombing 93 on Iraq. They had nothing to do with that either. So she was dating Louis Leibowitz, who was Dick Cheney's chief of staff. Dick Cheney was the vice president at the time. Lewis's nickname is Scooter Libby. He's a hardcore pro-Israel, part of a cabal, really. And then I look at, okay, who are Miller's sources? Oh, Paul Wolfowitz. Again.
So I don't know a lot of these people. They're all
just people. They worked in the Defense Department, but Richard Perl had been caught in the 70s spying for the state of Israel. So he shouldn't even have a job at all, but he's in there.
Oh, so it's people that are spying from Israel, is what you're saying?
People who worked in the U.S. government in the appointed side, not the elected side, like all the little Department of Defense, deputy of this, secretary of that. There are a bunch of them.
That you get appointed and they don't get elected. And so you're saying they're from Israel.
They got put there because the Israeli lobby pressured for those people to be chosen to those positions. Mm-hmm. And they were clearly foaming at the mouth for a war in Iraq. And they lied about September 11th by saying Iraq gave anthrax to 9/11 hijackers. As it turned out, the 9/11 hijackers didn't have anthrax either. And there was no meeting in Prague. So you cannot witness a meeting that didn't take place and a transfer of a substance that neither party had. So it's such a bad lie. And the media just ignored it. They finally came out, oops, there are no weapons of mass destruction. But they never went back and said, you said they had this. You said they had yellow cake uranium from Niger. Well, we looked at those documents. Yellow cake uranium is oxidized uranium. It's something you need to build a nuclear bomb. Mm-hmm. They said they were getting it from the DRC and Niger. Well, we looked at the Niger documents, and the wrong foreign minister had signed it. It's like an obsolete, someone who wasn't even there supposedly signed the document. So that's like today having something and signing it Obama or something. You know, like he's not the president anymore. That's how bad it was. They had obsolete military seals. They had changed the dates. It was clearly a forgery. That's now admitted. But I said, yeah, but who did the forgery? Who would do that? But George Bush Jr. included that in his speeches in the State of the Union and his speech in Ohio. He kept saying Saddam Hussein's getting uranium from Africa. That's what he couldn't remember the states, but from Africa, all of it. That wasn't true. And no one got punished after the fact. No one got fired. Judith Miller went to jail for something else she did for 85 days, but then she got hired by Fox News when she got out. Okay,
so you're saying, I'm going to have to paraphrase, so sorry. So basically these people that were appointed government officials, they're from Israel.
It's like radicalized Judaism. You think of like ISIS is like radicalized Islam. There's radicalized Judaism where they think God gave them land.
And how do you know they're like a part of that group?
Oh, because they're all write policy papers for Israel. Like these people, while they're Americans working in the American government, wrote policy papers for a foreign head of state.
Okay, but why?
Who does that?
Yeah, so, but how?
Like if they were all Chinese and we started fighting Taiwan, you might think, maybe China, the state, has something to do with this.
But I guess my question is like, why would they do that if they're Americans? Because, I meet people that are from, like maybe their parents are from another country or their parents, but they don't, I'm Irish and German. I don't know shit about what's going on in Ireland or Germany. So why is it different?
We don't speak German even, like don't need
ambition.
A little bit, okay. I stand corrected.
No, not
a lot of German Americans can't speak German anymore.
Yeah, no, they can't.
A lot of Irish speak English even in Ireland.
Yeah,
like Irish is gone,
but in general, like I only know that because I had German nannies when I was little. So, but like in general, my parents didn't eat tradition. It's kind of gone. Everyone in America is kind of American. So why would it be different?
I think your nationalism is different than a religion, though. So with Israel, it's sort of both. It's not just my ancestors were from there, but for a lot of Jewish Americans, their ancestors aren't from Israel because the majority of Jews moved to Israel in the 40s. Okay. Israel didn't exist until 1948. So my grandparents were born in the 20s, way before Israel existed. So you couldn't have family from there. You might have family that moved there, but it's more of a identitarian thing. It's a religion thing, and they feel a loyalty to their tribe. Because with that state, they call it the Jewish state.
So it would almost be like if I had a Catholic state. That doesn't really exist
I mean, there
anymore, maybe.
the Vatican's a Catholic state, but not.
Yeah,
It's
they're
not
so
the
liberal
same.
now, though.
Are they though? Yeah, that's right. Are they Catholic?
yeah. The Catholics don't even like
I guess
the Pope.
America's immigrants from everywhere besides the natives, so they're more like, I'm American. They want to be American usually. So it's the opposite thing.
Yeah.
But it's becoming cool again to be like, oh, I'm part this or whatever, But they feel $5 million people from all over the place. It's sort of a badge. We're like, well, I'm Jewish, like so. But they feel a kinship with that state because they're maybe their parents, whoever taught them, like, we need to be tight and always defend this ideal or it can happen again. Some of it's that. But I think a lot of it's profiteering. They realize putting a Jewish state in the middle of the Muslim world was a bad idea and destined for conflict. But I don't think they try to avoid conflict because after World War II, they're looking for the next budgetary thing. Like, hey, we got all these weapons. What do we do with them? Start another fight.
And by they, you mean the Zionists?
It's a mixture of Zionists and just pure
money-hungry people?
Just money-hungry people that look at, like, if you are in the stock market, what's the easiest thing if you buy weapon stocks? What do you know guarantees they're going to go up? A war. Guaranteed. It's like it's such a easy... And that was happening. The Iraq War, you saw Halliburton, Kellogg, Brown and Root, Bechtel, Lockheed Martin, all these people, hand over fist, like 33% increases in 1 year, like crazy amounts of income. And there's a belt of lobbyists around D.C. that profit from this foreign policy of imperialism through either working for these companies or after they get out of government, they get a job at the company, which has already been guaranteed. Like, oh, allocate us money from the government. And they're like, have your wife invest in it or whatever. There's always, like, Pelosi style. There's a bunch of profiteers. But for the Israelis, it's more than just the money. It's an ideological thing where they're like, no, that's a Jewish state. And they think of Judaism as a race, not a religion.
Okay.
They think of it as like a bloodline all the way to Jacob. I don't, but that's what they think it is. So yeah. And they think that Israel can do no wrong, and that all of Palestine should belong to them because it's in the Bible or something. So even though people already live there, they think they can confiscate private property and take it all for the correct race.
So that's what happened? They went to Israel in the 40s? Was that what you said?
They started going there in the 20s and 30s. I know if I talk
to Jewish people, their story is that they were like run out of everywhere, basically, for like hundreds of years.
Not all at once, like over time.
Yeah.
Well, Christians ran out Muslims too, and Jews out of Spain, for example. Like, and Protestants and Catholics would fight with each other. It wasn't uncommon.
Yeah.
And Muslims would fight with each other, and they colonized North Africa, and Christians colonized the Americas, and and Jews were kicked around. But Judaism, Talmudic Judaism is not the same as the Rabbinical Judaism, and is not the same as Biblical Judaism. It's something that they were still writing. They had oral tradition, but they were writing the Talmud as one of their holy books after Christianity and Islam. That makes them the third oldest Abrahamic faith, not the oldest. Biblical Judaism, which is the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, that would be before Christianity, way before Islam. But they kept adding text and text, so it wasn't a crystallized religion for 600 years more. So, but they decided the radical version of them is God chose them, like God's real estate agent, and that land of Palestine belongs to them no matter what. Now, biblical Jews would say, no, we're not the chosen race of God as in land. We're chosen to spread the word of God as a message and a theology about cosmology and morals, and that's all it is.
Mhm.
But Zionists are like, no, that's the promised land. Like the dirt belongs to us.
Okay.
And we're just returning there. And these other people, too bad. That's ours. Even though if you go by history, and even if you thought God was a real estate agent, they're still not the original people in the Levant. Because that's why in the Bible, who's David fighting with? Goliath. What is he? A Philistine. Philistines, Natufians, Greeks, Assyrians, Egyptians, Phoenicians, all kinds of people were in that land before Hebrews.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so these people got together and then they went and lied about the weapons of mass destruction because they wanted a war.
They wanted a war for Israeli interest. It was not in America's interest at all to invade Iraq.
Oh, so then they could do something with Israel, like establish
Saddam Hussein was a threat to Israeli expansion. So Iraq was the most powerful Arab state. Saddam Hussein was starting the Ba'athist Party, this pan-Arabism, getting out of religious sectarianism and then more into Arab nationalism. And that frightened them. They did not want all the Arab states under one banner. This is something Nasser did before in Egypt with Syria. They wanted to break that up. At the same time, the U.S. had, after the revolution in 1979, they decided they didn't want Iran to go to the Soviet Union. And they couldn't keep it, but they could prevent the Soviet Union from getting it if they went to the Islamic route. So they let the imams and stuff that they had captured go back. The Islamification of Iran did occur, and they did stay out of the Soviet Union. And in fact, but it really blew back in the U.S.'s face is because they had these radical Muslims in madrasas that the CIA was sponsoring, many of which were in Afghanistan as well, to fight Soviets there. We wanted to make like a Vietnam for Russia. But what happens after it's over? You have all these radical diaspora, trained, armed, and ideologically nuts. What happens? Osama bin Laden happens. Al-Qaeda happens. Al-Qaeda, maybe not on purpose, but they were created by the United States to fight the Soviets. And after it was over, because of U.S. foreign policy, starving people in Iraq, blowing them up in Lebanon, conquering Palestine, they're looking at this like, these are my Muslim kindred. They have legit grievances to point to. That doesn't mean you can blow up buildings in New York, but they had legit grievances. They hit embassies. They hit the Pentagon. I think that's fair game, but you can't use a commercial airliner. Al-Qaeda did do September 11th. That's not.
Oh, so you're not in the. I thought you were going to be a Bush did 9/11 guy.
No, Bush has got to be kept out of the picture. He's not reliable. But that government you need to worry about is not the people you elect so much. It's the bureaucrats.
The people that have been there for
the people in the pen. Like Kissinger was there for how many administrations? He finally died last year or this year. He was 100 years old. I think he'd been there. I know he was there since Kennedy. It might have been Eisenhower. I don't know. Kissinger was just in the background all the time.
Former Secretary of State. Should I know that? They might roast me. It's fine.
You should probably know Henry Kissinger. But
sorry, guys. Okay, so and so he's just appointed. How do they get appointed?
Lobbies usually. So very rarely is someone appointed because of their skill set. It's more or less. This goes all the way back to President Grant. That's where we get the word lobby from. He used to meet in hotel lobbies with special interest groups who just pay to play. That's Lincoln destroyed the U.S. when he did this, but like they would come in and lobby. And so if you're part of the donor class, you get to choose. Oh, I want this one. I want a position. So, okay, you get to be the ambassador to Greece. Do you know anything about Greece? Doesn't matter. You be that guy. Your underlings will do the work.
Oh, so it's kind of like, because
it's nepotism.
Blessing is funny. He says that he prefers Africa because he's from Zimbabwe. And he'll tell me because the corruption's out in the open there.
Right.
So like there'll be nepotism.
Zimbabwe, yeah.
Blessing, what did you say? There was a guy that was appointed that was someone's son or something.
Yeah, the president, his son is the minister of finance.
But he said it's like he prefers it because it's out of
Jared Kushner got a position, from Donald Trump. He's his son-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty close, We have dynasties. Hillary was almost president. Bill was president.
Mm-hmm.
The two Bushes were president. Roosevelt's for both president. It's kind of family dynasty. And what are the odds when you have hundreds of millions of people that these families keep getting the Kennedys too, over and over again?
Well,
They're all in government.
I guess because there's two ways I think about that. Because one way, it would kind of make sense if your family's raising you to be a politician. Like my dad owned a software company. I didn't go into software, but had I don't think anyone would be like my brothers are engineers. They're kind of going that route. I don't think anyone would be surprised.
Yeah, sometimes it's just the trades pass from down for father, son, daughter, what have you. But this trade isn't one where, like, if you're engineering, you go get accreditation at a university, become an engineer, you join a firm or something. This is voted by everybody.
Yeah.
So how the media selects who it is, because we have primaries. Well, who decides who gets to talk in the primary? Who gets to be on the stage? Well, they got to go around and get X number. Yeah, it's like you are choosing between the pre-selected, and they don't care which one you pick because they own them both.
And did they own Trump too then?
Yes. Like, they hate him though, because Trump was supposed to lose. He was supposed to be the easy guy that Hillary could beat. Because Hillary was going to start the war in Ukraine the first year she got in office. Because we had senators like Lindsey Graham going over there and saying 2017 is going to be the year of offense. That's what they're telling all of them. And she lost. And so we didn't have a war until the Democrats got back in charge. And within a year, Biden suddenly, we're at war.
But why? But if they owned Trump, wouldn't he have just done it then?
Trump's like 9 out of 10. He didn't give him everything. He wouldn't give him the war in Syria. He did rip up missile treaties with Russia. He did assassinate Soleimani. He came really close. But sometimes Trump would just go off script, which is the best. Like, the best stuff he ever did is when he didn't listen to all his advisors. Because he had John Bolton, horrible.
So do they always know that they're owned? So, because I'd imagine, okay, if I was, I don't think women should be in office. But like, I think, but I just think of, myself.
Feel the 19th.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I would go there. I'd get a male vice president, and I would just be like, I would just repeal the 19th and go home. All right, I'm stepping down, guys.
You need 2/3 of the states to agree with you to do a constitutional amendment, though.
I'm not going into politics, but
you'd be like, I'll be an autocrat. I'm getting rid of the 19th.
No. But media personalities, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, say, Candace Owens ran for something, right?
It would work. Like, that's what Jesse Ventura did. He was a pro wrestler, and then he was on radio, and Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor of California. I always think if celebrities, if you're not an idiot, like if you're a celebrity and you're like mid, you can win an election. Yeah. Because you got reach.
Well, so my question is it, so Trump runs, right? And then maybe he selects the people that advise him, or maybe someone else does. I don't know. But would he know? Like, wouldn't he just think they're his advisors? Like, don't all presidents? Like, so I guess my question is he
they
in
get
on
in
this
his
stuff?
ear. And so what happens is, Kushner's his son-in-law, but Charles Kushner is also a billionaire, the father of Jared. He didn't have a lot of those on his side. The entire mass media hates him. Like, anything he says, they tweet. They're like, he's a racist. It was all the stuff they criticized him for was false, was fake news. All the stuff they should have criticized him for, they couldn't do because they're guilty of the same things. Because Trump is full of graft, and he did a lot of shady stuff in New York with his real estate, but they all did. That's the problem. You want to talk about corruption? Look at Hillary and Bill in Arkansas. I mean, they allowed the training of Iran-Contra pilots. They're just so bad. They were at Epstein Island,
I don't even know what the pilots are. Like,
They murdered 30,000 people in Nicaragua.
What? With what?
So I'll tell that story. So in the 80s, there's this big scandal, almost as big as O.J. Simpson, called the Iran-Contra affair. And what it was is there's two groups in Nicaragua, the Contras and the Sandinistas, fighting with each other over power. The Sandinistas had overthrown the Somoza dynasty, very pro-Israel dynasty. What Nicaragua had been to the United States was a way around their own rules. So you have the War Assets Administration. They were decommissioning weapons, all these surplus weapons from World War II. Where do they go? Like, the war's over, but you got all these machine guns and stuff. It's already been made. So you're supposed to decommission them, but it's like, oh, well, we're going to sell these to Nicaragua, and then Nicaragua is going to give them to everyone. Because what they're playing this game with the Soviet Union where they're like, we don't want to decommission weapons going to our side. And the communists are like, well, we'll block it if it's going to them, but not if it's a state favorable to our cause. So what you have is both sides kind of looking the other way whenever the flow of black market weapons went to the people they wanted in charge. So all these despots all over Africa and Latin America, that was on purpose. It blew up in Nicaragua. The Contras are nasty. They're like ISIS of the 80s, cutting off people, shooting people, shot a journalist on like live TV, shot an American, chopping off hands, all crazy.
And so,
but what happened is Reagan publicly was against the Contras, but secretly the CIA was funding and arming them the whole time. And one of the things they had to do is train pilots because they were bringing guns in and cocaine back. And so it changed the face of cities like Miami, New Orleans, and Los Angeles. We're just getting so much cocaine. And it's coming from Nicaragua or from Colombia to Nicaragua.
A lot of people in
Nicaragua
Miami do coke.
It was all over Miami.
Yeah.
Miami was one of the big import cities. Because if you're going to choose southern cities because it's
right
an entry point, right? And the mob in Louisiana, which involved JFK, they were willing partners already. And so you need expendables. You can't have the government bring the cocaine on a government plane. That would be so dumb. So you support cartels and you support organized crime and you have them do it on your behalf. Because if they get caught, that's a mobster so-and-so. But it's called the privateer method. It's what the British used to do when they wanted to pirate ships. They don't go up with a big British flag and start attacking Spain. That could start a war. They have a pirate do it. And if the pirate gets caught, they're on their own. But the pirate's secretly working for the crown and supported and armed and everything, but all under the table. And that was going on. And the Clintons in Mena, Arkansas were training pilots to go bring guns to the Contras that were supposed to be against, and then bring drugs, which were also supposed to be against, into the country.
So my question is, like, how do you know that's true? Like, how do you know?
The CIA plane crash full of cocaine.
What?
Did it? The first trip was one of them crashed bringing guns in. And so these serial numbers and everything. These guns, the United States is arming the Contras. And it blew up. There was a big trial. It was on TV.
Oh, wow.
People got convicted.
So this all came out.
This all came out in the 80s. So you got like Ollie North and Anthony Poindexter. But this is the catch. 90% of the people involved got pardoned because George Bush Sr., who was vice president at the time, became president. And he just pardoned all of his buddies, commuted their sentences. And they had a Tower Commission and all of these people looking into it. And this is hilarious. The two guys, they had a Republican chair and they had a Democrat as the heads of this committee that's supposed to be investigating this massive crime that's caused a giant civil war and da-da-da. It was Dick Cheney and Lee Hamilton. Now, Dick Cheney would end up being vice president for George Bush's son, and Lee Hamilton was the head of the 9/11 Commission. That's who they chose. They couldn't choose Cheney again because he's being investigated, but Lee, his buddy.
Oh, so it was like one of his friends.
The same guy that chaired a committee with him in the 80s is the guy investigating the government in the 2000s.
Okay, so Hillary Clinton was involved in that.
Hillary Clinton is involved in a lot of things. The Clinton Foundation is a money laundering operation and goes on.
So, all right, there's a group of people in power and there's Zion. And so are all the people involved? Like, is Clinton a Zionist?
Clinton was compromised. He's not particularly, Clinton is a power hungry, he likes the ladies though, and they knew that. And, he took dozens of flights to Epstein's properties. And of course, he got that scandal with Monica Lewinsky, who was only 20. I mean, that's kind of on the line, you know, like legal. Should it be? I don't know. But he's banging an intern.
Yeah, I mean, at work. I mean, that's probably where the
he's president too. He's got an important job.
Yeah.
He's playing with cigars, you know, playing hide and seek with cigars. It's probably not what he should be doing.
But so there's people in office that are I need to like simplify this a little bit.
There are people who are ideologically in line with it, and there are people who go along with it because they're getting their arm twisted.
They either get their arm twisted or they get something out of it. So like the fame, money, power.
Most of them take bribes because Israel has an unregistered lobby. Like every other foreign lobby has limitations on it, except them. Because they're like, it's not an Israeli lobby, even though that's in the title. It's a Jewish lobby. But it says AIPAC, the I, stands for Israel. The American Israel Policy and Affairs Committee.
All right, so they're like compromised, arm twisted, and then there's people that are Zionists. And that's not all Jewish people, but it's like a sect.
No, it's definitely not. Like,
it's a sect of Jewish people.
Judaism is just an ethnicity or a religion because it's got two people use the same word differently. And they're not all anything. And
so this sect of Jewish people, they're in a lot of powerful positions in the United States. And their whole motivation is they want the promised land in Israel.
Yeah, and they have power. They have an advantage to gain power because they have a foreign state supporting them.
Yeah, because so the U.S. is basically funding this, is what you're saying.
That's why the Italian mob became so strong over all the other ethnic mobs, is because they had sponsorship from Sicily. It's like it's a lot harder to compete with the gang when they got a government tag team partner. You know? So what happens with Zionists in the United States, the Israelis are taking foreign aid, billions of dollars they get from America, recycled to buy politicians, and then they say, give us more money.
And it's kind of the same thing in media, I'm wondering.
Self-licking ice cream cone. It's because in media, it's nepotism. So a Zionist will only hire other Zionists. So once the Zionist gets in charge, that is now Zionist forever because they only hire each other.
Well, because do you remember, I don't know if you've seen my tweets lately where I was wondering if all the conservative medias were connected somehow. Because they all it's not like I don't mean it to, because I really enjoyed going to, I know you don't like the Daily Wire or you have your stuff with them, but I liked them. They're really nice, but it's weird how
they're good when they're just hitting low-hanging fruit punching bags like a woman has a vagina.
Well,
that's duh.
But I found it weird how the Crowder case was where I started to notice it. And I've talked so much about it, but like,
you're right.
I thought it was so weird the way they were all acting. Like, I thought it was weird how everyone covered it the same way. I thought it was weird so I thought it was just the wife like going around talking to all.
It's Karl Rove called it message force multipliers. And so what happens is you get talking points. Mm-hmm. So whoever originates it, but they like say Shapiro says this, then they all like say this thing.
Yeah.
Repeat this line. And that becomes the take. And you'll see that in influencer media too, or somebody will say something about Ukraine or whatever. And then everyone's like, you know what I think? And they just repeat what they just heard. Mm-hmm. And they didn't think that. And they don't have a reason to think that other than so-and-so said so. Mm-hmm. And it just becomes like, you see them all say the same thing, all have the same takes. Like there was this Anglican church that was bombed in Gaza. Someone reported it wrong and said it was Baptist. And even now, they all still say it's Baptist. I'm like, it's an Anglican church. I went and talked to the diocese and stuff. I went and researched it. And it's definitely, and it doesn't matter. Like most media, very few people are doing the legwork. They just see someone reputable say something and copy. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's a conspiracy like they sat around a table and were told to do that. They just do it because it works and it's lazy and they don't have to do any real work.
Oh, so that's what you think it is. I was wondering if it was like a funding thing where they're funded by the same people.
Well, you wouldn't get to be on Daily Wire unless you're a Zionist. So there's a particular type of Christian conservative they want on there. Mm-hmm. And it's the kind that serves Israel, which Candace is not pro-Palestine or pro-Israel. She's just like, how is this in America's interest? She's America first. Well, that's the wrong type of conservative. So
I thought it was weird that like that whole thing I thought was strange with her. And I'm not, I mean, I've had people on that are like on they're pro Israel. So it's like, I'll talk to anyone. I don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
But I
You've
thought
had
it was
feminists on. That's worse.
what? Yeah. No, I've
It's
had Brittany
not.
Renner on, but I just found it weird, that they all, when the Crowder thing, like everyone just abuser.
I just find it weird that you have these like prominent Christian voices that are all bent out of shape about some chick on OnlyFans when you've got people getting murdered right in front of you, like the whole population is starving to death and you're paying for it and they're worried about Lala or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so basically there's people that are compromised and it's either through blackmail
And bribery.
Okay. And then there's people that are Zionists and they're in positions of power in the
They
US.
are the most influential lobby and the best at the blackmail.
Okay.
They've got a few secret weapons in it. Because if you criticize what Zionists do, they get to use that leftist identitarian weapon on you, be like, you're anti-Semitic, you're racist.
No, that was so weird.
And that happened to Candace. Like, rabbis, she's definitely not anti-Semitic.
No, that happened to me. It was so weird.
No,
it was so weird. I didn't even know what the ADL was when Nick came on a year ago. There's like a clip of me and I'm like, and I went on Jesse Lee Peterson a year ago and they asked me who the most oppressed group was. And I was like, I don't know, maybe Jews. And I was like, I don't know. And then I had Nick on and it was just like a fun interview to me. It was just, I didn't know too much about him.
Right.
And then he comes on and freaking, every interview
there are people who actually are anti-Semitic. And so like you can be correct to criticize Israel for murdering kids and stealing property and all that. But some people, it's not because they care about Palestinians or human rights. It's because they just hate Jews. There are some people like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they try to act like everyone's like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Candace Owens like that.
No, I'll tell you the weirdest thing that happened. So every interview I go on after, right? Everyone's like, "Why did you have on Nick Fuentes? Why did?" I'm like, "I don't know. I was bored." Like,
I don't like him at all.
I know
he should be allowed to talk.
Yeah,
everyone should have free speech.
And so, freaking in July, the whole I wrote that song, Why I Can't, the one that got me in trouble. It was just supposed to be funny. I thought it was just a joke. And it was based on the fact that every interview I went on, everyone kept asking me why I had Nick on. And I was like, well, why can't, like, why is everyone...
What are you worried about?
Well, yeah, why is everyone so weird about this topic? That's the most I've ever been Googled in my life. I was put on all these these Jewish websites saying I was anti-Semitic, and then Pierce Morgan ambushed me, and it was the weirdest freaking thing when I was in that studio. It was like, because they cut out the song to make it look like I said something I didn't say.
Like, what are you, pro-Hitler?
Yeah, and then freaking, I'm looking at her like I felt like I was crazy. Like I felt like
your point though.
Yeah, I know.
Why can't I talk about this thing? You're like.
And I don't even come at it because the thing is, I bring on really smart people. I bring on, you're really smart. I'll bring on someone else that's really smart. They'll have a completely different opinion. I don't know. I just listen. I just interview. That's what I do. And
you're giving people reach that deserve it too.
And that's it was so weird because he was, after the interview ended, he was like, I think you should apologize. And like, he said, he's like, you should just apologize.
Pierce Morgan's supporting genocide right now. He can shut his mouth.
Well, and I don't know if people like view it the same way you view it.
He's like, can you condemn Hamas? Like,
I know.
It's like, listen, that's like there's a slave revolt and you blame the slaves instead of slavery. Yeah. The reason there's a slave revolt is because they're fucking slaves.
Well, do you think that they all... Because it seems like when I talk to those people, they really believe what they're saying. I don't think it's out of like a malicious, they want people to die. Like, it doesn't seem like that. It seems like they think they're doing the right thing.
For them, history starts in the middle. Whenever it's like, they have a team. It's like sports teams, right? They have a team and it's right. And so they got attacked on October 7th. They did. Mm-hmm. But look at October 6th, 5th. For 75 years of brutalization. Mm-hmm. It's like the prisoners finally got out of the cage and got some comeuppance. Mm-hmm. And they took people hostage and they murdered the Golani Brigade, which is military. But you have to understand, the Israelis had murdered 224 Palestinians that year prior to October 7th, just that year. Innocent civilians. Just snipe them, whatever they want. Confiscating houses, every manner of abuse. Checkpoints in the West Bank. There's a wall wrapped around Gaza with machine guns pointed at them. They have a blockade. They're not allowed to have international trade. They're on a calorie diet. They routinely bomb them back into the Stone Age. Like every 4 or 5 years, they blow up agriculture. So this is what these people lived through. 2009, 2021, 2014.
In
Family members
Palestine.
being killed. Palestine's 2 parts, Gaza and West Bank.
Okay.
Both of them get abused. And so just ask any normal person, what would you do if someone killed your kid? And the stuff is coming out, I'd torture. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, some people killed their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they knocked that wall down, and buddy, they got revenge for about a day. But they did not do mass rapes. They didn't rape anybody. There's no beheaded babies. They've made all these exaggerations because they need them, because Israel's actually guilty of all the things they're accusing Palestine of. They rape, they torture, they have extrajudicial jailings, they confiscate property. Their military would just shoot unarmed people for sport and film it. They've bulldozed people, just taking a bulldozer and run over people. Right now, in the field hospitals, they're turning people into worms, meaning they handcuff them so long and leg cuff them, they got to amputate their legs. And they're shitting in diapers and being fed through straws. And they're like, crawl around, worm. Right? You have hands, but you're cuffed and no legs. They've taken their legs off, surgically taken their legs off. They make them wear adult diapers and they feed them through feeding tubes. Yeah, that's torture. That's a fucking war crime. And that is what these ignorant assholes are supporting. Because what about October 7th? Like, you are so fucking stupid. Like, you have no idea the level of abuse that these people go through. Of course there was an October 7th.
And so basically, so you're saying the Jewish people or the Israel was attacking them for like 75 years. And October 7th was the first time that
its whole existence is based on colonizing Palestine in the first place. They had a war in 48. There's some back and forth tension. There was a guy that shot 29 Muslims at prayer in the back at a mosque. Started what's called the Intifada, the rising up. But Palestinians don't have an air force. They don't have a navy. They don't have a real army. It's like a militia group versus a state that's getting billions of dollars in modern weapons, tanks, F-15s. Like, this is not an even conflict at all.
And it's funded because of the politicians.
It's funded too because they want to keep the Middle East fighting with each other so that there can never be an economic or military threat to you. This sort of Anglican leverage they've had is foster sectarian violence on purpose and then play up different sides. They aided Iran, then they aided Iraq, then they aided Iran again. Then they're on the Sunni side, then they're the Shia side. Then they go to Syria. Oh, we're funding the FSA and al-Sham and al-Nusra Front, all these Sunni groups to topple Bashar al-Assad. So a Shia.
So the U.S. is basically funding wars in the Middle East so they don't grow, and then it would be like another U.S. superpower. They don't want that.
Can you imagine if Israel didn't exist? Or it was just Palestine again. That whole conflict was removed. There was never a war in Iraq. There never would have been a war in Syria. Never would have been a war in Libya. The amount of wealth, like every city would look like Dubai. That's what would happen. But they have been wiped back to zero so many times. The Iran-Iraq war only killed about 1 million people, but it destroyed so much infrastructure and maimed so many people. And then the 2 Iraq wars the U.S. did, plus the sanctions in between, 500,000 children starved to death. Kids, 500,000. That's all of Ukraine's casualties in this war with Russia, but kids, and from not having food. And they were writing policy papers like, let's hit the water treatment facilities so they have to drink out of the Euphrates River. And they were getting like weird diseases that haven't been around in a long time because they couldn't chlorinate the water. Like, well, chlorine could be used as mustard gas. It clearly is a different thing. And they write stuff. Michael Adine would say every now and then you have to pick up a shitty little country and throw it against the wall. That's like And I'm not paraphrasing. That's what he said. Shitty little country, and throw it against the wall. There's a sort of paternalistic racism. They look down on the Arabs and stuff like. You hear them say, I've never understood it. The Arab states, the black community. They're like, oh, really? All of them? They all think the same, huh? What a stupid way to categorize stuff. They don't think of themselves as a racial state. Israel thinks of itself as a Jewish state and thinks of Jews as a race, even though it isn't. But other places are just states. And Israel was created through conquest. And they have ethnic colonies in the West Bank. They'll just flatten an area, just bulldoze down everyone's home, build new homes called settlements, and only Jews can live there, no one else. Can you imagine that in the United States if we just
that would never happen.
Replaced the neighborhood and said whites only or something like that?
Yeah, you couldn't do that.
No. Nowhere in the world could you do that, but you can do it there.
So you think that's why they use the oppression thing to be, it's like an opportunist almost.
They know you're not anti-Semitic. They just know if they say it, that it works.
Yeah. It was like the weirdest. God, it was the weirdest thing that ever happened to me because I didn't even know much about that conflict. It's just, I mean, you
didn't even know what the ADL was, but you're on their list probably.
I was like, God damn it.
It's because it's guilt by association.
Yeah, like, maybe that was stupid.
Nick can do whatever he wants and he'll pay the consequences for that, but it shouldn't be associated to you.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think he should be allowed to talk too, but I mean, I disagree with him, but he should be loud. Everyone should have free speech. Because the best thing for bad ideas is sunshine. If you're not afraid of what he's saying, you should be willing to have dialogue and just debunk it with debate or whatever. But they're not. They won't.
So are these people, like, according to you, okay, I'm not saying I think
not
this
her,
or no.
Me.
Yeah. You think are they connected to the other stuff you were talking about? Like I wrote down 9/11, casting couch, COVID.
Harvey Weinstein and Epstein, all those rings.
Oh, Weinstein.
It all bleeds together, yeah, because Epstein and Maxwell also work for the Israelis. They got their primary funding from Les Wexner, hardcore Zionist. Wexner Foundation works for Israel, procures money for Israeli politicians. Ehud Barak, for example, $5 million they gave him through reporting Carbine. Glenn Maxwell's father was an informant for Israeli intelligence. He got a major whistleblower, Mordecai Vanunu, thrown in prison. These operations, not just some rich pervert that bought an island in the Caribbean. Where did he get his money out of the blue? You know, he's getting it from hardcore Zionists like Les Wexner. Les Wexner. And the Wexner Foundation is an outgrowth of a prior organization called the Sonborn Institute.
Oh, he's the CEO of Victoria's Secret.
Yeah, LL Brands, he owns all of it.
Okay. So this rich
Jewish Zionist.
Jewish Zionist. And how
he gave Epstein a house? He gave him a school. Really, it was a school that became a house. That's how big it is. For $1. Who does that?
And so he was funding everybody, is what you're saying?
He financed Epstein. He was his only real client, was Wexner. So he wasn't some genius financier that helped people avoid taxes or whatever.
Epstein, was he a Zionist too?
Yeah. Epstein mostly wanted the money and the young pussy. But they tried him with Doug Leese and some black market weapons gambit crap, and they tried him at Tower Financial with all these white collar things because he was kind of good at that. But his niche was in the sick, the pedophile, the blackmail, sexual blackmail, because he was a pervert himself. And so he and Glenn mainly did not have a pedophile ring as much as they just had a massive illegal prostitution ring. Girls who were young, some were under, some were over age. Most of them were in their 20s. And they did it for the money. And when all these lawsuits came out, the girls who got the most, not all, because there's some who were definitely groomed and victims who did get a good payout, but most of the people who got the most money were just the whores that were working for them for the money.
No, that was when I didn't know the ins and outs of the case, but it didn't seem like they were all kidnapped to be there. It didn't.
It's very hard to just take a child. Where did it go? You know,
like,
it's a hard thing to do. But one of the methods they would do for the underage girls, they had the third guy down in the ring. His name is Jean-Luc Brunel. He's dead now too. But he had a modeling agency in France that it was from Tel Aviv, Israel. It's called Karen Models. He switched it to be called MC Squared or MC2. MC Squared had a branch in Paris and one in New York and one in Florida. I think it was Palm Beach or Miami. I think it was Miami at first. But anyway, it's exactly where the Epstein properties would end up. And he would procure girls because, oh, we're going to get these models for Les Wexner. He has not only Victoria's Secret, but he's got Abercrombie and Finch, and they have a children's line.
Oh,
So
yeah. If you tell
we need child models.
Yeah, if you tell a teenage chick they can be a model
for LL brands.
Oh, yeah.
Gold, right?
I remember.
So
yeah.
they would get them from there, or MC2 was like a thing that fed into the higher level with Wexner stuff. Claude Haddad, but all these modeling agents are perverts, dude. Like almost all of them do this kind of sick stuff. Oh, you want to be a model? Sleep with the boss. Or they drug their drinks, and what they did was during the 80s when the Soviet Union collapsed, so did the ruble, and so all these currencies had massive inflation. So these girls in like Ukraine and these Eastern European countries were desperate for foreign capital. And so they're trying to take jobs abroad as anything, a nanny, cook, a model if you could, whatever. But once they got over there, they take their passports away, lock them in the brothel. And that there was a white slave trade to Israel. They didn't have rules about it till 2006. Actually, all the rules favored human trafficking because
in Israel,
there's a good kind of human trafficking too. Like if you're trying to save Jews from the Holocaust, you want to illegally get them, but whatever, the law's dumb. So they actually had organizations to illegally move people, but that war is over. But those organizations didn't disappear. And what they start doing, the dirty kind of human trafficking, sex slavery. It just morphed right into that. Same players, long story. But anyway, it's all documentable. But modeling agencies become sort of the front to get the top end. I hate to say talent. I don't know what to say. Like the girls they want the most.
Yeah.
The prettiest 12-year-olds or whatever. Ugh. And they would get them. And so that was happening. And then there was also the kind they would just find runaways and stuff. They're all over Palm Beach. And slowly, hey, just give this guy a massage. I heard he'll give you $200. So they'd use other girls to get girls.
Right.
Because then,
like
if you
Giselle.
get a girl, I'll pay you again for each one you bring. And sometimes the girl would go there one time, he'd flip over and be jerking off in front of me, they'd run out of the house, and that's it, never see him again. But sometimes they'd be like, well, it's $200. And they don't know, they're kids. They're kind of afraid, and they, come back again, and they build up each time. Why don't you take your clothes off and do it this time? Why don't you wear your underwear? Why don't you let them touch your, level, and keep. And they took the money. And they're like, these people are so powerful. I mean, he's meeting with Bill Clinton. He's doing this. What can I say? Can't tell the cops. They bribed the cops. He set up LLCs for like science foundations and stuff that had nothing to do with science. It was just to bribe Palm Beach police. They would donate from. Epstein would have a company that had another company that would bribe the cop. Like, it was just going in a circle with the money. But they used to warn him whenever they were coming to see his property. They'd tell him ahead of time. And we know this from his bodyguards and his chefs and the people that work for him. Like, yeah, there were kids here. And the police would warn us before anybody would come. And unfortunately, the FBI got to him first instead of Homeland Security, because a lot of the FBI is compromised too. They got crates full of recorded CDs and tapes let you know how far back it goes, right? Of people having
and
doing
so
what they're doing.
You're saying the FBI is compromised?
Oh yeah. Oh my God. The FBI is so corrupt. That's been that way since Hoover. I mean, they've always sucked. But they definitely confiscated boxes of recordings of sexual escapades, which is going to be a who's who. I mean, I got the list on my back. Right
Homeland Security isn't compromised.
No, but they're less compromised than the FBI. The FBI is an older organization. DHS was created after 9/11. So there are some good agents in there. And see, what happened with P. Diddy is DHS got to his house first. So whether they hide that or not, I don't think they will. They could. But definitely the FBI would do nothing.
So the FBI would probably help
They just
cover
sit
it
there.
up.
They do damage control. Like, oh, you're still going to jail, but we're going to contain this so all your clients, who are the richest men in the world, it's not getting back to them. You're not getting to Glenn Dubin. You're not getting Jess Staley. You're not getting Les Wexner. You're not getting the Bronfans or anything. That's not going to happen.
Okay, so
Can you imagine though, if that like I have the list I showed you, but
yeah,
like if everyone knew that, it would be it would change the earth, like because the whole donor class would be wiped out.
if they all knew the
fucking
Epstein's
prostitutes.
Island list.
Epstein Island was not even. They had parties down there and stuff, but the New York property and the Florida properties were just as bad. And he had a property in New Mexico called Zorro Ranch. They would tell the kids they're going to like a camp, but then they'd just be there by themselves when they got there.
Oh wow, Zorro Ranch. I'm looking at this.
He bribed the governor.
Wow. Huh.
He had senators, governors, presidents, prime ministers.
And there's a list of people that's like public that went there?
No, but I mean, I've got the list. It's public in like how? I mean, it's not going to be on CNN.
Right.
Ever. You know, but we know from the victims who all was fucking them. So you can compile the list a long way. It's not like a list sitting in a vault somewhere. It's just we know who it was because the girls have said, here's who I was given to. And we also have flight logs of people going to that island, Little St. Jeffrey's. What else are you going there for?
Right.
Math, like you're not going there for math camp. And so we have those flight logs of Clinton, Prince Andrew. That's why I had this Prince Andrew shirt with Epstein.
Do you sell those?
This store got canceled.
Oh.
But yeah, I used to. It was there's Epstein on the shoulder there. Yeah, that's the other thing. I lost every time I make a clothing store or something, they cancel it.
Really?
Yep. I lost Teespring, Teasley. I'm not allowed on PayPal either. So, it limits a lot of the stores you could open. All use PayPal. So, they'll just ban you for political reasons. They don't want someone like me being able to gain reach or wealth.
Okay, this rich class, basically.
The donor class.
The donor class. They would get money, or they would get blackmail on people using these.
Like, you can see Glenn Maxwell. She's just so clever. She started a thing called Oceans Terramar, like clean up the oceans. Oh no, I like throwing trash in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, everybody agrees, right? It's like no shit Sherlock thing. And she got to go to the UN 9 times to talk about her ocean charity. We could buy parts of the ocean and keep the water clean or whatever. But the whole purpose of creating this was to get her in to rub shoulders with UN officials and bring them to parties. And here's a woman and with enough makeup and some alcohol. Oh, guess what? She's 17 and a half, or whatever the law is where they are, and catch them in her web. And that's what she was doing. She had the real black book that they say is Epstein's. That was hers. That's her black book. And the names in that book is unbelievable. Like, find Bill Gates, find the richest people. They're in there. Bill Gates donated to MIT on Epstein's behalf. They wanted his donor money because one of the things the Israelis were doing is using blackmail to get trade secrets on R&D for science and technology. And MIT and colleges, grad students are basically indentured servants. They're all working. They want to know the information, so they donate to the school, and then the information comes their way. Well, Epstein had already been caught once soliciting a prostitute, an underage prostitute. So it's not really prostitute if they're underage because they can't consent, but whatever. I would just call it child rape. But that's what he got charged with. So he couldn't openly donate to these schools anymore with Wexner's money. So he gets Bill Gates to donate on his behalf because the people like Joy Ito from MIT would go to Epstein like, we can't have your name on this. we don't care if you're still together, but we can't have your name on this because what you did, it looks bad.
Mm.
So we just have a third party do it for him. And so suddenly Bill Gates is donating for Epstein. You're like, why? Well, we have emails from Bill Gates talking about being at the Epstein rape mansion late in the night. Very attractive woman and their daughter, which was Ava Dubin and their daughter. Their daughter at the time was 16, by the way. And every girl I've talked to, and I've talked to a lot of the victims,
You actually talk to the victims?
I just released a interview today with Maria Farmer. It's 2 hours long. Yeah. I've been talking to them since 2007, but the first one, I regrettably didn't believe her because it just seemed so,
Well, and women make up so many
he's got an island. I'm like, really? It was like that. But I knew Wexner was bad already.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that separate from Epstein. I knew Dershowitz was filth already. He's been a serial rapist offender his whole career. That's what he does. Defending child rapists like Roman Polanski and things. So that's, as a lawyer, you can do that. I don't know why you would choose those to be the people you defend, a bunch of child rapists, but I knew they were filth. I knew about Sonborn. I knew that whole story. And so when I found out that the connection between Wexner to Epstein is when I go, oh, all of that must have been true. And then it was very hard to dig, though, because the victims hadn't, think about, why is someone telling me? First, you go to the FBI or the police, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go tell the cops. They didn't work.
Because
First thing you do is you tell your parents.
Because they would pay them off. And the way they would get rid of the paper trail is they start these organizations that are for good causes.
Right.
That do donations to these places.
Right.
Wow,
So it wouldn't come from Epstein.
That's really smart, actually.
It come from Gratitude America or some bull LLC he made.
But Epstein's money, which is actually the other guy's money.
It's really Les Wexner. Like, Epstein himself was a conduit. Then Epstein would set up a conduit, and then that would do the bribes.
And Epstein would be in the category of the people that are compromised, right? Or is he his
Yeah, he's like a drug dealer that dipped in his own stash. Big mistake, right? Don't dip in your own stash. He was
and how?
He was a pedophile. Like, some people are in love with kids for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he didn't just, he really into little girls. One of the time when he went to jail the first time, he got work leave 6 days a week. He bought all the children's underwear from the commissary or whatever. All the children's panties, little strawberries on them and stuff. Yeah. Why? The whole Epstein affair is a dark path. It takes away from your soul to even learn about what they were doing. So these wars, the torture, the starvation, it eats at you to even know about it. And to know,
blessing.
Can you imagine these girls, how trapped they must have felt? I can't tell the FBI. They were just here. I can't, what do they do? Tell Bill Clinton? There he is over there. He's sitting at the pool. Clinton, it appears, was not into the kids, at least, but he was into young, barely aged women. That's enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But they were servicing people. It's just here's your reward. It's kind of like insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're already Zionist, you're already donating, but we're going to keep it that way. It's kind of like if you want to join a gang, all right, shoot that guy. Prove you're not a cop. Prove you're with us. Fuck this 13-year-old.
So what would be in the Diddy files? What would you guess is in there?
Dude, I'll tell you what, that Diddy.
Do you think it's actually going to come out?
Subner Redstone used to be the boss of that whole operation. He's now dead. He owned MTV and VH1.
Mm-hmm. And
that's what this rap hip-hop genre got compromised real fast. Tupac and Biggie are dead. Michael Jackson's dead. King of Pop. The ones that weren't in line, something happened to them. Where with Diddy, this guy is a closet homosexual. They were drug raping people. So if they couldn't convince you, look, with the promise of your career will take off, and that's usually what it was. But if that bait didn't work, they just roofie him and then do it anyway. I guess once somebody's done it once, they're like, well, might as well
The
keep
child stuff or the gay?
both. It was
Yeah.
they didn't have like 12-year-olds that I know of, but like 16-year-olds and stuff. They'd have underage girls at parties, and there was gay sex, and gay sex with straight guys who would just do it for the paycheck. And you're like, okay, I'll fine, yeah, I'll do it. But some of it was drug raping, where he has this like pink cocaine. I don't know what he did to it, but like he had a brand, and yeah, he was banging Meek Mills and like all the. If you look at the lawsuit, at least, and there's some audio recordings out there too. And this was nicknamed the Gay Black Satan Club, is what they used to call it. And it was a sort of just like the Hollywood casting couch, but for the music industry. And people like Cat Williams and I think 50 Cent and stuff have been talking about this. A lot of people sort of dropping hints about it. A lot of people dropping hints about Harvey Weinstein, who's the casting couch guy who's now in prison. You can look at some of their award shows where they're like making sure Harvey likes him young. Ha ha ha. Same with some of these executives at Nickelodeon and Disney with the kids shows.
Right, no, all
Dan
that's coming
Schneider.
out,
It's all coming out finally. But
and you've been talking about this for years.
for a long time.
Really?
Until Twitter, there was nowhere to put it.
Oh.
Until Elon.
Because
Elon's Twitter.
Independently wealthy.
Mhm.
And that's why, like, that's why I'm surprised he's still alive.
The reason you got docs on Dan Schneider now and Diddy is like they're like, I can go to Twitter and put this out. Now there was a lawsuit, but that lawsuit could have happened and no one known because it wouldn't have been reported on. Promise you that. Because look how long these girls were suing for Epstein in the dark and no one knew.
Oh, and it's because they're funding it. Like basically this donor class funds everything, but occasionally you'll get people that are independently wealthy.
Yep.
And they kind of fuck it up.
They're the threat.
I would have thought Trump would be one, but you said he was compromised.
Trump, I think they compromised his daughter, so now he has to bend because of her. But
They
Trump was a
compromised his
guy that was
daughter?
like very much fighting with Epstein and Wexner. But it's right and left wing Zionists. That's all it is. Because the Kushners and Netanyahu used to sleep in their house. He's very tight to Israel on that team. Ehud Barak's like the rival. It's like Democrats, Republicans. They had Likud and Labor. Was the Epstein camp. Was the other one. But it doesn't matter. But like Trump, he banged a lot of models. Probably he'd be like, like
Yeah.
it's like he banged Karen McDougal to Playmate. Like that doesn't make me hate him. Kind of ups his status.
Right.
Actually, that's a good choice. Whatever.
Was it true? What didn't he get into a fight over an underage chick? Like he was
He had this
fighting
weird
Epstein, or-
pageantry, like those kids I think that stuff's so weird. To dress up little kids, like 5-year-olds and stuff. He had like a teen pageantry. He was sponsoring modeling stuff, whatever. But it's not clear that he was partaking in that. He was more into like young supermodels like Clinton.
Yeah.
But Clinton would get him a little chubby sometimes. But
Well, like even Ivanka, she was like 26, I think, when they met. So it wasn't. I mean,
his wife now, she was like, she's still in her 40s, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he would always just get like a younger model. Like it wouldn't be that young.
He just upgrade to a younger model, younger than him. He's in his 70s, so
yeah,
40. That's pretty good. Like Vince McMahon,
like 26. You know,
yeah, hey.
but
he likes the ladies though, for sure. And like I think most billionaires, whoever can does.
Yeah, well,
that's
obviously.
But there's a difference though in courting a girl.
I'm the bad guy when I say
because you got a lot of money
Yeah.
versus buying a prostitute. That's different because prostitution is illegal.
Right.
And there's a lot of when something's illegal, you can be compromised. If something's just sketchy, there's nothing legally that can be done to the person.
Why do you think they compromised his daughter?
I mean, she married Jared Kushner, so that dude is like Satan incarnate. But
Jared Kushner.
that guy, oh my God.
He's Ivanka, is he married to? Or is it a different daughter?
Yeah, it's her. There's Ivana and Ivanka. It's very similar names, but
I know.
like the daughter.
Why do you think Jared Kushner is so bad?
Jared Kushner recently got up and said he was talking about the real estate in Gaza, like what a great development would be once we get these Palestinians out here. Too bad no one's taking them. That's one of the arguments they make. Like, no one will take them. What are you talking about? There's millions of refugees in Jordan, hundreds of thousands in Egypt and Lebanon and Syria. They've already taken in from all your other conflicts. You say they won't take one in.
So
That's
how do you know
bullshit.
the difference between someone that's funded or someone that is moving based on what you would say is incorrect information?
The funded, like if someone you can tell isn't dumb, that they're doing it on purpose, like they know better and they're just lying. Usually, you can.
And
say,
you would take her husband as one of those.
Oh, he's a Zionist for sure. He doesn't have to be funded. He grew up a billionaire. His father's a felon. His father, Charles Kushner, got in trouble for setting up honey traps on his own sister.
What's a honey trap?
So a honey trap is where, say, like if I wanted to compromise Blessing, which I would never do, and he would never take the bait, but he's over there. So I could hire a girl to, if he was married, whatever, and be like, I would get some young girl, be like, know where they're going to be, and try to catch them, like going fishing.
So if
he takes the bait,
his sister, an underage guy.
So what he did is first he compromised the governor of New Jersey.
Okay.
And the reason he did that, his name was Jim McGreevey. The governor of New Jersey is the one who appoints the president of the Port Authority, and whoever the president of the Port Authority is gets to levy out all these giant real estate contracts in New York and New Jersey, like the World Trade Center, for example. That was the big one. So they're all vying to get on the board, or even better, to be the president of the Port Authority. Okay. And the best way to do that is to compromise the governor, because he's the one that appoints who it is. And so he did. And what it is, McGreevy's secret was he was a homosexual, but not openly. He had married to a woman, but he was gay.
Would he still sleep with the woman? Like, how did that?
I mean, some people are like, I don't know, like there's Richard Simmons gay, 100%, only eating dick.
Yeah.
There's like David Bowie gay, which is like sometimes a dick, but mostly vagina. Mm-hmm. There's a spectrum, apparently. And so he was straight enough to sleep with a woman. Some of these politicians, like, I need a wife, I need this, like whatever.
They're weird.
Yeah, so
okay.
But he was definitely gay because Charles Kushner flew him to Israel and set him up with this man named Golan Sapel, who apparently wasn't gay. He really took one for the team. But he brings him back. They end up, lovers. McGreevey hired him, and he got a 6-figure job in security for nuclear power plants. Something foreign nationals should not be doing. But he's hired there, and he was cheating on his wife while she was in the hospital with cancer. He was in their bed with a man from Israel. And Kushner introduced them. Kushner's the one who flew him to Israel. And Kushner was financing McGreevy's campaign through a bunch of subsidiaries because there's limits on how much you can donate. So what he would create all these shell companies, and he would have them donate to McGreevey. But some of the ones he did is he took them out in his brother and his sister's name, Murray Kushner and what's her name? Miriam, I think. And they were like wanted in on it. They're like, whoa. They weren't mad that he blackmailed the governor. They weren't mad that he set up a honey trap. They just wanted the political access. Like, yay, you've used our company to donate to this guy. He did it. So they start fighting. So Charles set up another honey trap for his sister's husband. And this is so New Jersey. He went to the police. Their last name was O'Toole. Can't remember. This is a long time ago when I was researching this, but to get a high-end escort. Like, why would you, the cops know. Because the cops go to escorts because it's like, hey, we'll bust you if you don't comply kind of stuff. So whatever, they couldn't find the one. He spent like $30,000, which I think is a lot for a prostitute. I think normal was like $100 or something, like, whatever. 30, for a day, whatever. Like, she must have been great. Must have had some circus skills or something, But he got this girl to catch his sister's husband, so his brother-in-law. And this is the best. These people are billionaires. He took her to a 2-star motel called the Red Bull Inn. Stay classy. And the whole thing's on film because as she maybe said, no, let's go here, because it's all set up for them, whatever.
Well, they probably wouldn't want to take it. Like, why would you, if you go to a 5-star hotel, it'd be around other rich people that you might know, right?
It's possible. There's reasons. But yeah, let's go to this shady one. Is all we need is a bed.
Yeah.
But she probably was like, let's go here.
Mm-hmm.
Stay away. I'm good. Let's like it is, whatever. Because there's already spy equipment and stuff because they filmed the whole thing. He tried to blackmail his sister. He sent her the tape of her husband fucking some prostitute. She said, screw you. Like, I don't care if he's doing that. I'm still out going after you. And he did end up going to jail. So the Trump's son-in-law's father went to federal prison for the illegal campaign financing with McGreevy, not for the honey trap stuff. That all came out, and a journalist that was all over that was named Justin Raimondo. He used to work. He was the chief editor of antiwar.com. He's now passed away, unfortunately. He was a gay man too, but he was like, he's doing the gay defense. This is what Kevin Spacey did. You know, he's soliciting young men underage, and then he just came out and said he's a gay American. I was like, oh, how brave, how beautiful. Oh. That's what they did with McGreevy. He came out and said he was gay. Who cares? Nobody cares that you're gay. They care that you're sleeping with a foreign national and cheating on your wife and taking illegal bribes. Da, 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 da. But it all is like, but he's gay. How brave. And like,
well, I don't even, to be
in
honest,
New Jersey, being gay is not a big deal.
I don't even care about the cheating. Like, I mean, it's not my,
I wouldn't care about the cheating other than
like,
if you're cheating and someone knows, they have leverage over you and you're a governor. That's why it matters.
Yeah.
If he's just cheating,
it's like politicians,
none of my business.
The water is wet, the sky is blue.
Yeah. Oh, politician cheated on his wife.
Yeah,
at least it was with a woman. You know, at least they're an adult.
Didn't one get caught at like one of those places where you put, I remember there was something in the headline a couple of years ago where it was like in a bathroom stall. He tried to get someone to do something.
Oh, and they were...
I don't remember.
Mickey Cohen used to be the master of that. He would bug the hotels in Vegas and catch celebrities having extramarital affairs and stuff. But see, in the 60s, that was a really big deal. Like, oh, you cheated on your wife. Like, you're dead. You know, that would really...
Now it's like water is wet.
Now it's like, how old...
Even
you know, like as long as they're over 18.
Trump's, I mean, I don't know if he did or he didn't storm me, but it's like, would I be surprised? Would I care? No.
That the woman that had the cat named Vagina and all that, like that is such crap. That woman is full of it.
Stormy Daniels does?
Did not, I forget which one it is because this stuff's so stupid, but like the one in the Macy's dressing room, really, Donald Trump can't go anywhere without everybody, especially Macy's. That did not happen. Okay. And like he'd pick you. Like you look at his caliber, you can't say he's got bad taste in women or cars. Like he's got a nice Rolodex. Just saying, like that's a horrible thing. Like I could pick you, but that would never happen.
So you think that Trump basically is compromised because his daughter's in his ear?
I think he's got stuff on her, and it's like he did. It's weird because he.
So they'll send you.
He gave Israel a lot.
They'll come to marry your
daughters. He moved the embassy. Oh, they'll compromise your kids. If they can't get you, that's the next one.
They go to your kids.
Yeah.
Wow.
They'll get your kids.
Crazy. People,
and you know, that's almost better dirt to have something on your children than on you.
Yeah, no, it is. Because you'll die to protect your kids. Mm-hmm. Like, well,
if one of my kids shot someone, I'd be like, I did it.
Yeah.
You know, just to keep them out of jail.
No, it's crazy. People used to think I was compromised. I don't know why, because I blew up so fast. So I think they thought, I don't know, I just would get this. Like they thought I was funded by like the same people, I think. I don't fully understand this. Maybe it was something else. I don't know. But freaking, and then I did the song.
And they're all like, no, she isn't. And
I didn't know any of this backstory. So I feel like I just like fell into it on accident. I didn't mean to be here.
That song, I was like, oh, she doesn't get how canceled she's about to get.
No, I didn't.
You ended up on Piers Morgan to talk about it.
Well, they brought me back, the crazy thing. So I didn't get it as bad as I thought. I don't know.
Sponsored by Sprite. No. Wouldn't that be nice?
No, freaking. But yeah, and then it was weird because people would like be like, oh, she knows. And I'm like, I know what? But
Oh, she knows it. Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, what? I know a little bit, but okay. So, but
Zionists are one of the powerful factions, but it is not like some pyramid with like the Rothschilds or people have this idea like Jews run the world, whatever. No, they don't.
Mhm.
Clearly, they don't run Russia. He kicked the oligarchs out and is smashing Ukraine. That's not something they wanted to happen.
And do you agree with Russia? Like, are you on?
I understand it. I feel like we did the same thing when they had missiles in Cuba. There was the Bay of Pigs, and they did not want Ukraine joining NATO with those armaments that close to Russia. You could hit Moscow.
Mhm.
And Ukraine was attacking the Donbass in 2014 and 15. It's a civil war between West and Eastern Ukraine. Russia probably was, by proxy, supporting the Donbass. Why wouldn't they? Like, this is totally predictable and preventable. There's no reason to keep expanding NATO to the east. Like, you're just going to end up in a war with Russia, and you know it.
Hmm.
What are you guys doing? What would happen if they put missile defense systems in Mexico? There's no way we would allow it.
No. Oh, because that's the equivalent. So us
That's
putting.
putting them like it's
Oh.
the simple. Put yourself in their shoes. Like,
Mhm.
well, we're not. We don't have to guess because they did put missiles in Cuba, and it started the Cuban Missile Crisis. And Kennedy was smart enough when the invasion failed, and part of the reason the invasion failed is not because they didn't have air support; they didn't have enough ground support because the weapons the anti-Castro Cubans were supposed to have had been diverted to Israel, and we're not there. That's a different can of worms. But what Kennedy did, he says, okay, we will remove our missiles from Turkey and you remove yours from Cuba. And that was the rational big boy thing to do. And that was de-escalation. We took our missiles out, they took their missiles out. But the whole reason they moved missiles in is we already had missiles in Turkey. Like, you cannot put armaments right up to someone's doorstep and expect them to just sit there and take it.
Right.
And that's what they were doing in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate the war. I wish it was over. I wish that Ukraine needs to surrender because they have no hope of winning. You lost the territory. You fucked around, you found out. You started a civil war that you couldn't handle. NATO thought the sanctions were going to cripple Russia and that if they were in a protracted war, they would lose because the economy would break. But the sanctions didn't cripple Russia, and they got a protracted war with far more artillery. Hey, because it doesn't matter. It's not a video game. The reason you capture cities in a war is to deprive your enemy of the capital that's in that city. So the bullet manufacturing, all the factories,
Mm-hmm.
like, you take that away, you win. You kill the army, you win. But if you disarm the army, you win. You can disarm the army by cutting off their supplies of weapons, food, and so on by taking cities. That doesn't work if all of their armaments and money and supplies come from abroad. So when they get $100 billion from the U.S., taking Kiev, taking Suma, taking Web doesn't really matter. The cities they're taking are no longer functional cities. When they took Bakhmut or Vitka, those are just urban warfare settings. Nobody was in those cities. There's just people fighting where a city used to be. That's different. But so they're not playing capture the city. The people commenting on it are so stupid about war, but the whole thing was preventable by not pushing Ukraine in as de facto NATO, promising they could join NATO, and putting U.S. weapons in Ukraine right up against Russia's border. Shouldn't have done that. It's our fault. It's the United States' fault that 500,000 Ukrainians are dead. And they're going to lose all that territory. Zaporozhye, Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, gone. That's all Russian now.
Okay, and so Trump sort of, but he didn't always go along with what they said.
No matter what you say, not, possession is 9/10 of the law. It's Israel's because they took it. Should it be? No. But is it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Legally, no. It doesn't matter. Like they live there.
But-
It's theirs.
But
right?
Trump's aware that he basically can't do anything without, because they own all the money, basically.
Trump is an amoral businessman. So what happens with him is he always sides with whoever has more money. So when it came to Saudi Arabia and Yemen, he sided with the Saudis. Saudis rich, Yemen's poor. When it came to Israel and Palestine, he sided with Israel. Israel's rich, Palestine's poor. But when it came to Syria, he sided with Syria. Why would you side with ISIS? Syria is definitely the partner you want. The
Mhm.
Islamic extremists, what are you doing? When it came to Ukraine, he's like, let Russia, Russia's the bigger party. He always sides with the richer side because he wants to do business. It's like, it's not good. What's it to us? He's about making money.
Mhm.
Now, sometimes making a cold, amoral business decision is unethical, like siding with Israel. And sometimes you're on the right side, like siding with Syria. Fuck ISIS and fuck the Zionists. Fuck any kind of religious radicals. They can go to shoot each other, whatever. And they couldn't control him. He lobbed some missiles at Syria, but he did it in a way where he spread 100 subsonic missiles over 10 targets, which means they're not going to hit anything. You shoot down 10 missiles each area, and they have redundance of air systems in Syria, 5th in the world at the time. So they had the S-300, the Pantsir, the Book M1. There's no way the slowest missile we have is going to hit anything. It was a big fireworks show. Maybe he was flexing on China. Maybe he didn't get him off his back in the U.S. But the moment he did that, every talking head, even Rachel Maddow, whatever, they're all like, oh, Trump's become presidential. I actually clipped it over and over again of all of them saying, Trump's presidential, he's presidential now. Like all of them say the same line. Why? Because he finally did what they wanted, which is to go topple Assad in Syria for Israel. But he stopped. He did one shot and stopped. He met with Putin June of 2017. And that's the day he cut off all CIA funding to Al-Qaeda, ISIS groups, which we didn't admit. But he cut off all funding to the moderate rebels. There were groups in Syria like the Free Syrian Army, the FSA. And then there was Aral al-Sham, al-Nusra Front, which is now called HTS. And then there was like ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. They're the definitely bad ones. But all of them were bad. And all of them are actually the same people. It's just, today I'm FSA. I put on a new hat and now I'm ISIS. They use them as conduits to get arms to ISIS. And you can see it. Obama's non-lethal aid package, all these ISIS fighters coming in Toyota trucks with brand new paint. And, where are they getting tow missiles? Not from Walmart. This is from the black market. And they got it through our intelligence agencies who got busted.
So like the CIA?
The CIA, Purple Shovel, they have all these intermediaries getting surplus arms from Bulgaria or whatever. And, it all funnels down to ISIS in this war. But it's being paid for by the U.S.
So if they got caught, why wasn't it like national news? I'd never heard of
The
that.
national news
Is owned by the same people.
Is pro-war. I mean, why didn't the national news tell you they lied about anthrax? Why didn't the national news debunk the WMDs in Iraq away?
Because they're all owned by the same, it's the Zionists, basically.
They have commercial interests for war, too.
How far does this go back? Like 100 years?
Goes back to LBJ. It goes back to
Lyndon B. Johnson?
To 1963, November 22nd.
Okay.
That's when they shot JFK.
And do you believe it was like, some people think it's a grand plan and it started, there's some people that think,
Well, I'm talking about the American wing of it. That's when they captured the U.S.
Okay.
There was Zionist influence going back to World War I, but not like now. Like today, really, if you want to go back to the death of the free press, when the press started just saying whatever the government told them to, is Lincoln. Lincoln went around and just shut down whatever paper was negative to him. And so it just ends up with pro-Lincoln propaganda. And then they won the war. And they have the South under Reconstruction. But all these independent newspapers and stuff never recovered because there were years where you could only listen to state propaganda. And so they become the papers of record.
So I have a question, because you said that the Civil War was not about slavery. I remember. Right. Why do academics not believe that? because you know I used
Academics
to
do
read
believe,
I
but
used to read Thomas Sowell, and I know he argued really. I remember reading one of his books like years ago, and he argued really strongly that
I like Thomas Sowell, but he's so wrong on the Civil War. Like, it's a clear thing. 6 northern states had slaves through the duration of the whole war and were fighting for the North. The first time they tried to pass the 13th Amendment, it failed because northern states shot it down. They offered the Corwin Amendment before the war started, which was constitutionally guaranteed the institution of slavery if the South would stay in the Union, and they still left. It wasn't about slavery. And Lincoln didn't free any slaves. He was dead for 7 months before an amendment came to free the slaves, and they only freed black slaves in the South. They still had the coolie trade. They still had Asian slaves. And New Jersey, Kentucky, and Delaware had slaves all the way until December with the 13th Amendment, all northern states, by the way.
really?
And the same generals that they're like, they're not racist.
So
It was Custer. It was the same guys that went west killing the Lakota and the Comanche and the Apache and just slaughtering Native Americans. They don't call them Jim Crow laws, but they made conditions for black suffrage, and it was only for men, by the way. Black women still couldn't vote. No women could. Those are the days.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, is that a bad thing?
He said, well, you could go back to 1851 because it used to be only property owners could vote.
Yeah.
And they got rid of that and all went to hell. But because it's a way of saying educated people.
Yeah, responsible people.
Yeah, but well,
I guess
the
Elon
argument
Musk
was,
wouldn't be able to
if
vote,
you
right?
own property
Mhm.
and people live on it, like
Mhm.
you can get them to vote your way. That
Mhm.
was the argument. But the slavery was already being phased out.
Mhm.
Like a lot of states, New Hampshire had just gotten rid of slaves in 1857. The war's at 1860.
Mhm.
Some of the northern states, all they did was sell their slaves to the South anyway.
Mhm.
And the reason behind a lot of abolitionists wasn't because they thought the races were equal and all this humanitarian blah, 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 blah. It's because they hated blacks so much that they didn't want to live with them at all. And they thought, we can't have them slavery expand west because we need to stop this where it isn't already all mixed up. They wanted to send blacks back to Africa. That's what Lincoln did too. Like Lincoln actually sent blacks to the Caribbean.
Oh,
He
wow.
was 6 days before he got shot in the head, had met with his cabinet on a plan of what to do with these black people. Because Lee had surrendered, but the war wasn't over.
Mhm.
And he was planning on deporting them in mass.
Well, didn't a large number of them die? I heard after slavery was abolished, I can't remember if it was half or a quarter, but
like that happened to sharecroppers of both white and blacks. But yeah, almost 1 million blacks died between 1867 and
yeah,
1900. And it was because they were just like, the North was racist. Everyone was racist in the 1860s. They're not going to hire them. And they just ended up doing what they were doing before without the guarantee. So no room, and the economy in the South was devastated. 2/3 of the railroad had been destroyed. The ranching animals had been gutted. The fungible cotton was being stolen by carpetbaggers and stuff. They couldn't get capital from the banks. So it was just destitute. And where do most black people live? They lived in Mississippi. They lived in South Carolina, which were the richest 2 states before the war, and then became the poorest states afterward. It was bad. It was, and the North continued slavery all the way until the 1920s in the form of script pay. What they do is like they'd pay you in script. And the only place you can spend your script is at the company store. And so they'd have miners in West Virginia. There's another one. West Virginia seceded from Virginia to stay in the Union for the Civil War and kept their slaves. They didn't say you got to get rid of your slaves to stay in the Union. That was not a condition. They would have they wanted to preserve the Union, to preserve the revenue, because the majority of taxable income from exports was from cash crops from the South. When the war physically starts at Fort Sumter, what was that? It was where the physical location in the ocean outside Charleston that collected the tariffs. And before Fort Sumter, Lincoln sent his revenue cutters down there to illegally collect taxes from a state that had seceded. And they fired on the Nashville. The Northern Navy fired the first shots. Then there was Fort Sumter. Then Lincoln arrests all these people in Maryland, and his army was marching through in the Massachusetts regiment in uniform. In Baltimore, you had to change to tracks of different rail size. So you had to walk through some of Baltimore. And they were getting booed and hissed, and they fired on the crowd. The first people to die in the Civil War were in Maryland from Lincoln's Union soldiers shooting citizens of a state that had not seceded, still in the Union, killing. The song for the state, Maryland, My Maryland, Oh Maryland, all the way until 2020 was based on that event. And then during the woke age of 2020, they changed their state song and changed all the state flags and stuff because suddenly the Confederate flag was a symbol of racism, even though all the way up until like the 1990s, it had been all over pop culture as just a Southern pride type of thing. It was in pro wrestling. It was in fucking from Leonard Skinner to Kid Rock, and Kid Rock's a Yankee, but he still had Confederate flags. It was never a racist thing until like the 90s when HBO started doing these specials with skinheads who had Confederate flags too. Like that has like the Nazis have anything to do with Confederacy. It's so stupid.
But he was part of the CIA too.
He was being spied on by the FBI.
Okay, because I know there's some. I think Jay Dyer is. Do you know Jay?
Sorta like
he kind of reminds me of you, where you guys just like know a lot about all these random stuff. But
a guy who would be really good on MLK is named Doug Valentine. He's got the goods. I've heard that too. I haven't heard. I'd have to ask Jay about it. But all I know is that the FBI had bugged him. They knew about his extramarital affairs, his plagiarism. He wasn't a clean.
Yeah.
He was definitely a net positive. What he did. Don't get me wrong. But he had his downs, his dark side, as most people do. So,
but you're saying that the freedom of press ended during Lincoln.
It got destroyed.
Because Lincoln wasn't the guy.
Lincoln was a tyrant. Lincoln got rid of habeas corpus. He did the whole Constitution. He just threw that in the wastebasket.
I feel really dumb sometimes because you say stuff I don't know what that is. Habeas corpus.
He didn't. There was no guilty until proven innocent. There was no. It was just like, we're just going to come arrest you. We think you're a Southern sympathizer. Go to jail. He arrested the mayor of Baltimore. He went after a judge. He went after whomever he just thought.
So this is like when they bring people to jail before they've been gone to trial.
It's like Romania. Right?
No, but this is what they get a lot of the guys on the, I didn't know this is what it was called, but they get like the child custody stuff or the child support stuff. They'll throw them.
Yeah, he had no due process of law, no speedy trial, no, like think of anything from the Bill of Rights or the Constitution, he got rid of it.
Wow.
And what it is today is like, it would be a fantastic story if they were fighting to free the slaves. Like that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
That they weren't.
They were fighting to keep.
They wanted to keep them. They were fighting against the rebels and they needed the tax revenue. And it wasn't really the North. It was Philly, New York, and Boston. And in fact, New York, they said, we're going to secede, New York City. So we will secede. Too, because if South Carolina gets a free trade zone, so do we. Like, you can't levy all these taxes on us because a lot of goods, because people will try and counter this argument, go, well, in 1859 in New York, yeah, New York is exporting Southern goods that went up there by rail. So it was produced in the South. They would sell it to people in the North too, and then ship it over to England and sell it. But it would leave the port of New York. So they'd be like, oh, that got taxed in New York. I'm like, yeah, but the original goods are from South Carolina or whatever. But this is great. New York threatened secession, and it was 1861, January 6th. The original January 6th. And in fact, some of the wards did secede, and they kept that Confederate logo on their fire department and their emblems of those towns up until the World War II.
So Lincoln was actually a tyrant, is what you're saying.
He was a monster.
And then who do you think was behind his assassination? It was just
John Wilkes Booth.
No, but I mean, like, do you think it was him, or do you think it was this class, or?
No, it was the Southern Intelligence Agency. Like, the plan was, they wanted to kill him, Seward, like his whole cabinet. They wanted to kidnap him if possible, but they stabbed Seward in the neck. He had a brace, or in the face. He had a brace on his neck from falling off a horse. So lucky, because the guy that went in and pulled the sheet off, went to stab him in the neck, and he had this thing guarding it. So he stabbed him in the face. And somehow he lived through that. They shot Lincoln. He actually died the next day. Apparently it wasn't a silver bullet. But he died. And then it's not an act of terrorism, though, because they're at war, and he's the commander-in-chief. So if they catch you and can kill you, too bad. I mean, they were assassinating Confederate generals and going after Jefferson Davis. So there were still 90,000 in the field. I mean, Lee had surrendered the army of Virginia, Virginia was the largest Confederate state. Back then, that was the largest state in the South. And Pennsylvania was the biggest state in the North. It wasn't like Texas and New York and all that had not blown up the way they are now. So it was mostly, and it was a lot of Pennsylvania steel and railroads and stuff that were pressuring and lobbying to get Lincoln to outlaw slavery in the South, not for blacks, because they were trying to get a rail line from Chicago to California, and the South was building one from New Orleans, and they wanted to undermine the free labor so that they could win the race to the West. That's all it was. Nobody cared about black people. And in fact, Virginia and Tennessee ended slavery during the Civil War, and didn't matter. They're still being invaded.
Okay. But that was the beginning of the end. So when did the oligarchs or the Zionists, I guess, come in?
Well, what happens, you do get oligarchs with like Rockefeller, Carnegie, although Carnegie kind of became an altruist in the end. He did what he could, but there were, like you said, you blew up. Sometimes you come across a super resource. So whether it used to be indigo, opium, gold, tea, the East India Tea Company was like the BlackRock of the old, school. Oil became the super resource. Oil wasn't that useful until about the 30s. And they start making gasoline and automobiles, and then, everyone needs oil for everything. And you do have these oil barons that do become what you could argue are the American oligarchs, especially with Rockefellers. They start New Jersey Standard Oil, which becomes Exxon.
But an oligarch isn't necessarily a Zionist.
No, you can be oligarch just if you have so much money,
right,
that you can become a donor class just in and of
How
yourself.
much money do you need to have to be an oligarch?
You need to be a billionaire.
Okay.
Today, you need to be a billionaire. But the Soroses and the Wexners, the Haim Sabans, before that, Sheldon Adelson, he finally passed away. Sumner Redstone, he passed away. They would, they didn't get all their money because they got some super resource, like they're sitting on top of oil or something. Just, look, it's under us. How lucky. They got it from covert state support from Israel. And it's very easy to outdo your competitors when you have endless banks and credit from a state, right? And they created a donor class within America. They need American Jews, wealthy Canadians and Americans to rise. So you end up with the Bronfmans. A lot of them are in like liquor, garment district, real estate, and
what time period is this you're speaking about now?
Well, I'm talking about today. Those are the big businesses still are like Seagram's Liquor, Wexner's in the garment industry, Peter Nygaard's in the garment industry, like lingerie and stuff. It's still
right.
It's clothing.
These fat chicks gotta
Hollywood.
They can't just be naked. You know what I mean? They're too fat now.
Dude, that's the other thing. The modeling agencies have crippled because they're into this woke stuff. Have you seen the new Juliet?
So
the new Juliet.
So
I'm like,
ugly.
whoa! Did they?
I'm supposed to go on TV. I'm supposed to look at TV and be humbled. That's what, when I was young, that's like what it would do. It would humble you. You'd go to the gym a little bit. You'd like run a little faster.
Yeah, when I was a kid, it was like all exercise stuff on TV.
Yeah,
people like, come on.
Now it's like these ugly, like I'm like, I'm doing pretty good, aren't I? No, I'm like,
hey, you look at the new Romeo and Juliet. Like that had to be on purpose. Is Tom Holland? I think people say he's a handsome guy, right?
Yeah, he's a handsome.
He's a handsome guy. You said that in a way that seemed like
no. I mean, he's not really, but like
By today's standards,
objectively, yeah.
he's a talented actor anyway.
Yeah.
He's got money. He's pretty handsome. He could play Romeo. Fine. Probably could find more better, but whatever. The girl, though, God,
So bad.
she fell out of the ugly tree into every branch.
They just want to sell us dreams.
That's what it is. Like ugly
the
girls can be Juliet.
Yeah, the ugly chick can be pursued. Like even
It makes the whole story, like the story's ridiculous already, but it's believable. Like if Juliet was just completely stunning, you could find someone so bad that they kill themselves to be with her. But when you look like that train wreck, you know, it just becomes comical. Like what is
even
up?
the other one that we eat up, 50 Shades of Grey. It's like the most average looking chick. Cute, fine, but finds a billionaire.
I think
that just drops everything.
I don't think she's average anymore. Not in the U.S.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're thin, you're already like a 6.
No, but what, this like I think he's like a multi.
She wouldn't get anywhere in Japan. I can tell you that.
Well, I'm just saying, like you're gonna find this super rich, handsome guy that just drops everything to. Good luck. Like guys like that have women throwing themselves at him. They're not pursuing.
It was like an ethical dilemma because who played him? Is it Jude Law or whatever? I don't know. Some British actor, some handsome guy. And it was like, if this dude was from like the trailer park and was ugly and, you know, looked like Rabbi Shmuley with pubic hair for a beard or something, but was rich, you know, that's like, but if he's rich and handsome.
Yeah.
How is he leveraging this? They want to be with him.
Sell us dreams.
It's like saying, "Oh, I got seduced by Cindy Crawford in the '80s or something." I don't think you got groomed or anything. I think that was a willing participant.
Okay, but you're saying basically you have to be a billionaire to be a part of this class.
To be an oligarch, yeah.
And
you could be in the hundreds of millions, I guess. But the big fish, they're all billionaires. They're all on the back of my t-shirt. Like all of these people are involved in this weird actual human trafficking. I have to use the word actual because that gets thrown out if, you know, for the dumbest things. Did you fly someone to your location? Human trafficking.
And they rewrite history that makes them look bad in a way. Like Lincoln?
They have completely exonerated. Then not only is Lincoln or like Churchill not a demon, they're like the best ever, carved into a mountain. Lincoln's on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
That guy. With Jefferson, with Washington, like, holy crap. Jefferson ended the transatlantic slave trade. He had slaves himself that he inherited. And he actually went into debt buying their extended family so they wouldn't be separated. And he tried to outlaw slavery in Virginia when he was governor. He only lost by like 2 votes. He stopped it from going out west.
Yeah.
But he saw it in a pragmatic way that this is something that has to be phased out. You can't just cold turkey.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. And you need the whole sentence here. The emancipation of black slavery was horrible because the way it was done, because it ended up with a bunch of sharecroppers starving to death.
Yeah.
You can't just have a whole generation of people who can't read, which is not their fault, not educated, not their fault, but that is what it is. And just expect them to throw them in the workforce when everyone hates them on a like biological basis. They had no chance. And they just died. And that's the chapter they don't tell you about. As for the script pay I was talking about, that culminated in West Virginia, the Blair Mountain Rebellion, the largest rebellion since the Civil War in the United States. 1 million rounds of ammunition were fired to fight in Logan County. This is where you get the Hatfield and McCoy. This is where you get the term redneck. Redneck is not from, you know, the farmer beating, like, the farmer tan or whatever. No. It's the bandana the coal miners wore red so they could tell each other apart from the feds they're fighting. Coal mine to coal mine, fighting against the federal government. Now, they use the Air Force against the civilians. First, you think Waco was bad, which it definitely was. Think like where they're killing and burning Americans. They fought with them for days and shot over 1 million rounds. This is like not, you know, this is World War I type of stuff. In America, fighting civilians versus the government. Most people, unless they live in West Virginia, were never taught about this.
Mhm.
They think you got labor rights out of the air, or, protesting with cardboard signs. No. The reason you got labor rights is because rednecks with guns physically fought the government and lost, but they kept fighting them and made it so difficult. There was another strike, a huge strike in Colorado coal miners. They went in shooting their tents and stuff. It was bad, but they did end script pay. Then you get wage slavery, but these are still levels up. Slavery's a spectrum.
Mhm.
Cattle slavery, serfs, somewhere in there, indentured servants,
Mhm.
script pay, grad students. But it came from armed rebellion.
Okay, and so basically these oligarchs or Zionists will rewrite history that they
Right now we're in the Zionist phase, but oligarchs throughout history
have always
become, or plutocrats ruled by money, right?
Mhm.
Have gained, they use the government, usually this is what happens, they use the government for some sort of favoritism in the market. Almost nobody can become a billionaire without government grants. Not even Elon Musk. He was the king of getting grants for his space program and whatever. The government pays.
Mhm.
You have a competitive advantage. And they use it like a revolving door. Because the government doesn't give you their money, they give you someone else's money. The government gives our money.
Right.
They profit from a bribe.
Mhm.
So if you're in the government, say you're the government and I'm the lobbyist, I'll give you $1 million to you, Pearl. You get $1 million. You have to give me 10 million. But don't worry, you're just giving me tax money from other people. Who cares?
Mhm.
So you lose nothing. You get $1 million. I get 10 million. Taxpayer gets screwed. That's what happens over and over again.
Oh, so the government basically robs us
The
through
government
tax money.
steals our money. They call it taxing under the guise of they're building roads and schools and stuff, which is not true because all your roads are state taxes. All your schools are from property taxes within your state. Like you're paying for the military, which is overbloated, and just the dumbest of things of corporate welfare. They bailed out Citibank. They spent $22 trillion
Yeah, I
with a
remember
T.
that. For the you're talking about 2007, 8.
2008, yeah.
Yeah, my family almost lost. My dad bought a whole neighborhood before that happened. It was a bad investment. And then the market tanked.
Well, yeah, I mean,
He bought it was literally
because that's right during the mortgage-backed security fraud.
I don't know how we got out of it. I don't remember. Somehow he figured it out. But literally we almost lost my parents' entire wealth, everything, because they put their life savings into they bought a full neighborhood. They're going to develop it, sell it, and the market crashed. And when I was a kid, that's one of the my strongest
Yet all
memories
these people
was,
buying in a credit bubble.
yeah.
Can we take a break for a second? I got too many Sprites.
Yeah, go ahead. No, he almost did. That was the most stressed I've ever seen my parents, because it was they built a software company. My mom was going to be a teacher. My dad started a software company. She quit and decided they worked together on the software company. 20 years, 30 years, employed 200 people, something like that. And they took all of that savings and were all right, we're going into real estate. Let's buy this neighborhood down the street and we're going to develop it. I have a road now, though. So it's called Hannah Perl Drive. It's my full name.
Yeah, there you go.
So
at least you got a road.
Yeah. Well, I think it worked out in the end because the market went up and I don't know what they did, but they figured it out. But yeah. And you were saying they robbed us, basically.
Yeah, what happened there was, first of all, they arbitrarily lowered interest rates because of the Iraq War. They're borrowing for that, and they want to make debt easier to pay. But what they did is they offered all these people teaser adjustable rate mortgages called ARMs. And then they jacked the rate 17 times in 1 year. And there are all these TV shows and stuff saying, you can flip a house, just buy it, fix it up, and sell it for more than what you bought it for. As if that's automatic. Like crypto. Oh yeah, just buy it. It'll go up. Sell it for more than what you bought it for. It doesn't always go up. Sometimes they bottom out. When you had the credentials to get a loan, there's supposed to be a risk for the lending institution. So you don't want to loan money to what's called subprime or somebody that doesn't have a job, no collateral, no anything. You don't loan money to people like that because if they can't pay it back, you lose too. But in this scenario, what they did was the lending institutions sold the securities to third parties. So like the IOU, like, okay, so I loaned money out to this person, they got to pay me back. Well, that contract, like I'm going to sell this to this person over here. Now they have to pay you back instead of me. But now I have no risk. I can start lending to everyone.
And this was,
because if they don't pay it back, it doesn't matter.
and this was
It's
done
on
by
this guy, not me.
the Zionists and the oligarchs in order to make money.
This was done disproportionate number of small hats, but like I would say this is an Israeli thing. This is just greed. And
Okay.
but there wouldn't have been the interest rates wouldn't have been the way they were if not for the war in Iraq, and that's definitely Israel's fault. But this isn't to do with them. Some of them may have happened to be Zionists, but that wasn't why they were doing this. They did a number of different financial instruments that should have never happened. First of all, you're removing moral hazard. You can't sell the securities to a third party because now there's no incentive to be judicious in who you loan to because it doesn't matter if they pay it back or not. Someone else is going to get stuck with it. Then they changed the way they do insurance by doing what's called a credit default swap. And they would get these CDOs, collateralized debt obligations, with fake ratings. So it's like a bunch of $1 bills with a 20 on top. Looks good, but isn't. And they bribe the rating agencies to lie. So they're giving AAA ratings, which is what you'd give for like government bonds, which almost never, to absolute junk. Absolute junk. And so other people were investing their retirement savings and other things in what they thought had a AAA
Good
rating.
ratings, and it wasn't.
But the rating, they knew it was bad. But they could claim, oh, that wasn't on purpose. I just really suck at my job.
But it was just greed.
They're
So that
like,
wasn't like,
oh, I just gave it the wrong rating. Oops. But there's internal emails where we go, look at this sack of shit I just sold. Like they were bragging about it. They knew.
yeah.
They knew.
Because I don't think my parents had that. I think it was the problem was they couldn't sell it because of
Their
the value.
problem
Like
might have been, they couldn't liquidate a whole neighborhood because all these other people were buying on the prices were inflated because everyone's buying on credit.
Yeah.
Thinking, well, I'll flip it.
Yeah.
And then I'll pay back.
That's what happened.
And so you have a bubble forming because if a whole bunch of houses hit the market at the same time, and no one actually paid for them, they're all buying on credit. You got a whole bunch of people in debt, arbitrarily raise the price of houses temporarily because they're like, well, the credit goes through. They go, well, it's worth this much. He paid this much, or he ain't actually paid yet. He's just supposed to pay later and can't because he's wants to sell the house in order to pay for it. And you cannot do a business like that. Say, oh, let me buy a house with nothing, and after I sell it, I'll pay you back. Like, that's such a risk. And so the people, the worst were like the college kids moving into a house for the first time. And they're not buying a house to sell it. They want to live in it. Well, you couldn't afford it because everything went up because all these idiots were buying on credit and the banks were irresponsibly lending to just anybody. And so, they're going around buying all these properties and making the price go up. Well, of course, they're buying the properties with ghost money that they don't have. And so they end up defaulting. And then through credit default swaps, usually if you have insurance on a property, it's like, oh, let's say I buy fire insurance on a house. Probably the whole thing isn't probably never going to burn. It might. No way if there's 10 of them, all of them are burned, But like one of them might, but you have 9 more. That's the way insurance is. You have one person gets insurance on one property. And so if something happens to the property, oh, it's okay. I got insurance. You got to pay me. I'm insured. What they were doing is they were getting multiple parties to buy insurance for the same property. So it was great in the beginning. Like, as long as this doesn't burn down, I just collected insurance from 10 different families on the one house.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if the house does burn? Now I got to pay 10 people instead of one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the simplistic way. I'm trying to narrow it
Mm-hmm.
down. Of what was going on a mass scale is they're insuring properties, one property to multiple different parties. And yeah, that was stupid. AIG and some of these insurance companies were also bailed out, and they're making decisions based on the faulty ratings. So the faulty ratings was huge.
Mm-hmm.
The subprime lending was huge, and the credit default swaps all made everything worse and worse. But they kept pushing the can down the road, like, well, just increase credit. Oh, just do.
Wait, I just realized something. This is something you were talking about earlier. So is that why you think the September 11th was set up? Do you think it's by the Israel people?
Al Qaeda did September 11th, but Al Qaeda was never a independent terrorist organization from the U.S. They created them in Afghanistan, and Israel and Saudi Arabia had joined a pre-existing nexus with the U.S. intelligence agencies, similar to Iran-Contra. I guess I was kind of walking there when I was talking about all that,
Mm-hmm.
and then drifted off into something else,
Yeah.
right? Because there's so many tangents to these things. But 9/11 was a jointly conducted covert intelligence operation between Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the United States. And there's so much evidence for that. That's what I went over on Fresh and Fit.
Yeah.
Like,
Can you give me
4
like your
hours.
top 3 pieces of evidence that it was them?
Okay, so Khalid al-Midhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi, 2 of the hijackers on Flight 77, it's the Pentagon, came to the U.S. using their real names. They got fast-track visas, which never should have happened. All of them did, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
They lived with a Saudi intelligence asset named Omar Bayoumi and another guy named Osama Basnan. They met in the Kurdish mosque in San Diego, but they came into Culver City in Los Angeles. These guys, there's a money trail going from Bandar Bush, which is that's like the head of Saudi Arabia's CIA. Prince Bandar sent money through his wife to Naweed Dalket, who gave it to these intermediaries, Osama Basnan and Omar Bayoumi, who then paid the hijackers, gave them logistical support, bought them an apartment, lived in it with them, and then lived next door to them.
Why would the hijackers do it if they were going to die?
It was worth it to them because they had seen so much death and mayhem where they're from, and they view the United States as great Satan. Like, if some of these people, they don't think death's the end anyway, so you live forever.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't see it as wrong. They feel like this is a government that starved to death 500,000 children. This is a government that is killing Muslims in the Middle East for decades on end. And we're going to knock their front teeth out in New York.
Okay, so
they hated them so much they're willing to die to do it. And which is actually probably more respectable than flying a plane over the building and dropping a bomb on it. At least they had to give their own lives to do it. You know, terrorism is not somebody just didn't wake up and feel like, I think I'll fly a plane into it. It takes a lot of external factors to get somebody in that place in their head.
And so they were mad because of the bombing that was going on in the Middle East.
They stated why in their will.
That the government was funding, that the U.S. government was funding.
They did not like the Israeli occupation of Palestine. They did not like the Beirut bombings. They had a list.
So you don't think the U.S. knew about that?
Well, they knew because the CIA had tracked both these hijackers to an Al-Qaeda summit meeting in Malaysia where they met Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in Sana'a and spent the night with them. And the CIA knew they had eyes on them. They had ears on them. They had been bugged. They had tapped their phones in Yemen. They had tapped their phones in Hamburg, 2 different cells. So Al-Qaeda split up cells for each of the planes. Didn't meet till the end. The Hamburg cell hit New York, for example. and these guys in California end up hitting Washington D.C. Here come
They're
black
coming.
helicopters. Yeah,
They're coming for you.
black helicopter.
No, the hospital's next door, so there's like emergency landings though.
Sun came out. All the gingers got burned.
So, okay, so they were basically okay. I totally misunderstood because I didn't watch
so
the
here's
full.
the thing: the
Yeah.
CIA followed these people and had their phones tapped. Knew they had entered the U.S. Knew they were going to flight schools and couldn't imagine they were going to use an airplane as a weapon. That is bullshit. The FBI also knew, because I actually used to work for a woman who was a translator of the FBI that read through slow form and otherwise what they had known, and they had an Iranian informant who spied on Afghanistan flat out tell them it's going to be a terrorist operation using airplanes. They're here, and here, going to these flight schools. This guy, the Washington field office, his name's Mike Fagelli, put the kibosh on us and didn't want to hear it. They knew, and the CIA knew, the FBI knew, and neither one of them acted on it.
And was that because they wanted the war in Iraq?
I think they wanted to replace the Cold War with a war on terror. This endless budget.
Does it kind of go back to the conflict? Everyone makes money. Even in media, everyone makes money off of conflict. So nobody says anything because everybody's making money.
Well, the Israelis were caught celebrating the whole thing, and they're thinking, oh, yeah, it's on. America's going to blow up all those towel heads now. They just saw it as, they just see money.
And how long has America been funding that war?
Since World War II.
So this has gone on since like what?
This is since the end of World War II. Well, I mean, Eisenhower, there was the War of 56 of the Suez Crisis, and Eisenhower actually stepped in and told him knock it off, and he put in UN peacekeepers in the Sinai Peninsula, which, Israel is supposed to be evacuated. They annexed territory in the 6-Day War. From 1957 to 1967, they were there. Weeks after they were removed, Israel attacked again. But by then, Kennedy was dead. Lyndon Johnson was in charge. And Lyndon Johnson was a full-on Zionist. He was sleeping with a woman named Matilda Krem, who was an Irgun terrorist. Arthur Krem was a willing cuck who was in the Johnson administration. His family stuff, they all have ties back to Israel, Operation Magic Carpet out of Yemen, the roots of the ADL, just the who's list of bad Zionist organizations, all Lyndon Johnson. He's the guy that completely changed policy in the Middle East. John Kennedy was trying to inspect the nuclear weapons in Israel that they built illegally by stealing material from the U.S. Ben-Gurion resigned in October to stall the moratorium on weapons. That actually Robert Kennedy had already sent agents in, John Hayden, and they went out to Dimona where they knew the damn thing was in the Negev. They tested the flora and the fauna around it. And they found 97% enriched uranium. The only country that produced that at that time was the United States, out of the Nautilus program for nuclear submarines, which is where our uranium was missing. So the Israelis stole it. I made a movie about it.
People don't care because it was so long ago, and that's why they take so long to declassify stuff. Because
and they knew by the time we did this in 2015.
Yeah,
we're dealing with flat earthers and people who don't know which bathroom to pee in. Like, they're not a threat.
Hey, they make some points. Just kidding.
Especially the chicks with dicks people. Like,
yeah.
I can't believe that's where we're at.
Yeah.
I never personally met someone that dumb in my life. I don't know if I'm in a bubble or what, but I've never met someone that's like, if it's so simple. If you have a penis, you're a man, and or a brain, and if you have a vagina, you're a woman. That's that. It's so easy.
It was crazy. I played in a tournament last spring,
For
and
volleyball,
and it's called All Nations. I don't know what they're doing in Thailand and Brazil, but they got hella trannies. No, I swear, because London, it's like an international city, so it's like an international
Thailand
volleyball.
has always had lady boys. They're that desperate economically that the dudes would be chicks for at least they can blow or whatever. But they never said, "Well, I'm a girl." They'd always
Yeah.
say they're a lady boy. It's like, no, I was just a dude that is very effeminate, wears makeup and stuff, still has a penis.
Mm.
They never were so delusional to be like, no, I'm supposed to be a woman, so I'm a woman. They never went with that stuff.
Mm.
Brazil, I don't know.
So what's gonna happen in the future? It seems like it's not good.
It's fucked up. Like when you overtly go for people like that, or Russell Brand, or
People
it's
that are loved.
the mask is off because the charges are so fucking stupid. If you really look at the case, and we're going through the phase now where they're not even trying to be clever. They'll just, if they can't honey trap you, they'll just make it up. But it's going to fail. And the main reason it's going to fail, the same reason they're going to lose this war in Ukraine, and how Israel's going to have enough hubris to take this war into Lebanon in the summer, and they're going to lose that, is because Twitter is the first time broken the monopoly on media. See, I always say demons they operate in the dark. The great sin is the lie. Because all the other stuff, the war, the starvation, the human trafficking, the collapsing of economy, if they didn't lie about WMDs, there wouldn't have been a war in Iraq. All the bad things that happen are predicated on the lie. So if you take away their ability to lie, you remove all the power of everything that comes after that. All we need is an honest media, and it fixes the whole thing. What Lincoln destroyed way back when he started shutting down papers, he gave the government the ability to lie to everybody.
Do you think
If that had not happened, there wouldn't have been a world war, then none of this would happen. All we need is honesty. The truth will set you
do you
free.
think that Elon Musk will eventually have to cave to them? I've heard some people say they
He's
think
struggling.
that I've heard some people say that they think he has.
He's still, well, he's got employees and everything. You can hear my stomach growling. He's still got people banned. He still has people shadow banned. And the people who are banned actually have a chance to come back, but when they come back, they won't be shadow banned. The people who are shadow banned might as well just start a new Twitter, because there's no movement right now within Twitter to deal with all those people who are secretly banned. And you can tell too. Someone's got 600,000 followers and they get 14. What's going on? It's because they're shadow banned, and that never got cleaned up. They did a number on Twitter. If you see the Twitter files, I'm sure they were shredding papers anyway, because Barry Weiss is one of the people looking at it. She's a hardcore Zionist.
Who's Barry Weiss?
Barry Weiss used to work for the New York Times. She coined the phrase "the dark web." I believe that was her. She's a tool. I did a 7.5 hour breakdown of her Joe Rogan interview because I had to interrupt her every time she lied, which is like every sentence out of her mouth. It's just like that. You asked me earlier, like, how can you tell if someone's being funded? If you were ignorant, you would get some stuff right on accident because you don't know it. You're just like, if you get every single thing wrong, it has to be on purpose.
Right.
Like, you'd have to know what was right to get it all wrong. So if someone's getting everything wrong, they're being financed. Nobody's that dumb. People who are that dumb would be too dumb to even know what to say. You know what I mean? Like you can't get every single thing wrong.
Yeah. Huh. But in your view, an honest press is what fixes this.
Freedom of speech is the ultimate demon slayer. Because I don't think most people are evil. I think They just don't know what the fuck's going on.
Well, and they don't want to
And-
lose. People don't want to lose their money.
Yeah,
they don't want
but
to lose.
man, I
I
promise you,
interviewed. God, I
if you
interviewed.
showed churches and if you showed them the starving kids in Gaza with their ribs poking out and the worm people they're making and stuff with the torture these, this war will be over. They don't know.
How have you seen it? If
You can post it on Twitter. I mean,
Oh,
I
it's
know
on
I have friends in
X.
Gaza. I have friends in Israel too.
Mhm.
Not every Israeli is a psychopath, you know, and they're like, this is what's been going on. This is so sick. They're
Mhm.
willing to say, and some of these IDF jackasses put it on Instagram. They have Telegram groups. I'm in one of them as a sleeper, and they're just, oh, it's disgusting. They're bragging about it, showing their trophies. Just you don't even want to know. Like, they don't care.
Can I see?
Yeah, I can't get my phone to work here, but when we go downstairs, I can show you.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucking disgusting.
They brag about like people that they kill and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
We've archived it. I'm like, ooh, get in and archive this. Because they'll kick us out as soon as they find us, you know, but they, there was a story. I knew a girl who was dating an IDF guy. Not together anymore, but she was like, look at them. And that they're posting this and this, and they're in a Palestinian's house. Just took over someone's house, going through their stuff, destroying it. And these are people who already had to flee because Israel was bombing apartments. They're not going after tunnels or Hamas. They're just bombing whatever they want. Hospitals, mosques, churches, homes, agriculture, water towers, the university. They just blow it up. 85% of the homes have been hit with bombs, artillery and bombs. And they have precision-guided missiles. They want to annex that territory. They want to force them all to leave and just collect that land and make it, you know, southern Israel.
Because God, basically.
Because God told them you can. Amalek, you know, is they're quoting the book of Samuel and the book of Numbers 13, with Moses going and telling them all the different tribes they can kill and things. What is it? Deuteronomy 11, I think 25 through 27, where they're just saying, from the river to the sea.
But it doesn't get out because there's no honest press and everyone's bought.
If there was like,
everyone's
and if there is someone honest, they get fired. Like Tucker Carlson, when he just put his pinky toe in the water and started figuring things out about COVID, about Ukraine, and about January 6th, especially, even though he was the highest rated show, not only on that network, but any network, they fired him.
Candace, they fired too.
They fired Candace as soon as she started to notice.
She barely even touched it.
She barely touched it. I think she knows more than what she said, but she still doesn't know this in and out like she could, and she probably will. But as soon as she got a little too close to the sun, like Icarus, you know, take her wings away. When someone gets out of line or starts to figure out about the donor class, how the world really works, they will stop
Do most, like, do you think Ben Shapiro knows about this?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He's a snake. That guy.
Huh.
Ben Shapiro is like, talks about how he's against identitarians, except himself. Well, he's a Jew and he supports Israel. He's totally an identitarian. Wherein it's like, you think Europeans converts, which you could call trans Semites, they have no descendants that lived in the Levant, who came to Palestine in the 40s and created Israel, that you're a lawyer and you're going to say that your legal argument for them to confiscate land by force and murder people and take houses is because in the Torah, it says that Jacob had a wrestling match with an angel. And afterward, God promised all the land to his bloodline. And Jacob changed his name to Israel and starts the 12 tribes of Israel, which there is no continuity with. It
sounds like
Jews
the
anyway.
race mixer crew.
It's just, it's that bad.
They always come for me.
You can't racially inherit land anyway.
Yeah.
They're not even of the race that's in the Bible. That would be the Palestinians.
Right.
The Palestinians converted to Christianity and Islam. But they are the original people of the Levant who used to practice Judaism. The converts, the Talmudic Jews, come from what used to be Babylon, now would be Baghdad, Persians, and then even way later, the Khazarians from like Crimea and Eastern Europe. I mean, when you go down and you're lathering up your skin with sun lotion, you're like, my people were here for thousands of years
Mhm.
with your blue eyes and your sunscreen. You're like, no, they were not. You're not.
Yeah, yeah.
You're a trans Semite. You got it in your head that because you believe in Judaism that you have some bloodline heritage to those people. I got news for you. There were people there. It's not you. And if you want to get specific, there was no King David or King Solomon or Adam and Eve or a Jacob and Esau or any of that stuff. Those are myths based on other myths. Now that's where we're like, no, well, if it's my religion, it's true. Like, okay, to you. But in history, that's not what we say based on archaeology and reality.
Mm-hmm.
Those things aren't. King David killed a giant. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
And Samson, he had magic powers and killed 1,000 Philistines, the jawbone of a donkey. And then, they cut off his magic hair. So he lost his power because Delilah tricked him. But then it was growing back when he's in prison and he pulled the pillars down. That is some science fiction
But
stuff.
they're using religion to justify the war.
They rather than using religion as what it actually is, which is cosmological explanations and a moral guide of how you think you ought to behave,
Mm-hmm.
they take it as a fundamentalist, like all this stuff happened. No one really thinks Noah had a floating zoo for 150 days and then another 40 days when the rain finally stopped, and then all the animals come from the ones of the boat. It's the story of Gilgamesh, which is borrowed from another culture. They just changed a few names. It's an older myth. You're not supposed to take the story literally. You're supposed to say there's a new covenant, like there's a do-over. The
Mm-hmm.
story is for children. And an adult that thinks Noah's Ark like is an historical event.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to say to you. Like, bishops and stuff don't believe that.
Right.
They'll tell you it's a metaphor. Only the Schofield Bible, hee-haw Christians in the United States mostly, of certain Protestant sects, take every word like it's like that happened in history or something.
Mm-hmm.
But they have an historical claim based on mythology to steal land from the people who are actually living there. And like, even if all of that stuff was true, a bunch of Europeans still can't come down and kick some. Like, you can just live with them on the land. You don't got to have it exclusively. Like, oh, but they let some Arabs live in Israel. I'm like, yeah. And there was black senators in the 1870s. That didn't mean racism disappeared.
Wait, so that actually kind of makes sense because all the terror attacks and like that sort of stuff, it's all a response, really.
Yeah.
But that makes everyone else.
It wasn't
in the
happening
West.
before.
So,
Jews have lived there, like only like 3 or 4% of the population.
But I'm
it
thinking
wouldn't.
like that means everyone in the West. The reason they don't. It's not malicious. They just don't know who started it. Because I'll talk to people. If what you're saying is true, which I don't know.
Oh, they think Jews have always been there. That it's their land from the Bible. That Israel was a country in ancient times or something, and that they're returning there after thousands of years. That's what they think.
Right, but it's not like because I'll talk to people and it doesn't seem like they're lying to me. It doesn't seem like it just seems like they have a very different opinion. So I kind of understand where you guys both come from then, because you would say that the Zionists started it and they believe that they've been there because of the Bible, basically.
Yeah, but thing is, even if they were there, so were the Palestinians.
Yeah, I understand.
You're fighting with them back then too.
Yeah.
You're not the original people, even in the Bible. Moses directs them to kill all these different tribes. Were already there. The Pharisees were who? Right? You're even warring with other Jewish sects. And there was no Roman expulsion. That is something they just made up. Cold cloth made that up. There was a Babylonian expulsion, but that ended with Cyrus the Great, who's in the book of Hebrews in the Bible. And that correlates with actual history. Cyrus the Great did go. Cyrus the Great did end slavery throughout the entire Persian Empire. But they weren't being led right through the Red Sea or any of that. No Egyptian army was chasing them around for 40 days in a desert. Like that's didn't happen. And then later, they didn't win slavery through divine intervention. A Persian king came and ended slavery, and should be given credit for that. And in fact, he's in the historic museum here in London as the great emancipator, Cyrus the Great. And that's what happened in history, and that's in the Bible too.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the Torah, the really old books where they have, witches and giants and flooding the earth and all of Egypt being covered in frogs and killing all the firstborn sons, you're not supposed to take that literally.
Yeah. Well, I think we'd have to do a whole show on religion before we go.
I mean, it's people can believe whatever they want.
Yeah.
You don't have the right to go. They said manifest destiny in America too, like kill these Indians. They're a bunch of heathens. Right. So they're not real people.
But I thought Native Americans mostly died from disease. Is that not true?
They did mostly die from disease.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes those diseases were spread on purpose, mostly not. There really wasn't a way to colonize America without that happening, because smallpox was going to do what smallpox is going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But there was another 10% or so wiped out by war and shooting the buffalo and so on. That happened too. The Caribs, who the Caribbean's named after, don't exist at all. 100% wiped out. Just have some words left. That's it from their language. That a lot of the tribes on the East Coast, besides maybe the Powhatan, nobody even remembers they were there. With the conflicts out west is purely based on distance that they avoided the plagues that they could exist. But it was inevitable. I mean, the domesticated animals that have cousin-like viruses to smallpox, like cowpox, all come from the old world. So plagues devastated Europe too, and they getting a lot of these germs from their animals. Mm-hmm. But there were no cows, horses, chickens, goats didn't exist in the New World. So they're hitting immune systems that have zero resistance, and it wiped them out. And that's unfortunate. That I don't think there was another way. Not everyone. It wasn't like they just came over and started killing. When Grenville came over to the Carolinas, he got along with Indians and had a relationship with them. The French sort of did that with their trading posts and their beaver pelts and stuff. The Spanish, no. The Spanish really just stayed on the same path they were already on when they kicked out the Moors. They kicked out the Jews and the Muslims from southern Spain, and they went west. That 1492 was the year where they got the last bit of the Moors out. It was actually a town repaid its debt to the king and queen. It was a shipbuilding town that provided the ships that Columbus would be on. And when they get to the New World, it was still the conquest, homogenization, But that's part of why the Spanish Empire only lasts 300 years, is they couldn't innovate or develop, or they could just kill and steal. And so when the British wiped out their navy, they couldn't make a new one. They were sort of parasitic and backwards, if you ask me, but they did their damage. I mean, everything from south of Texas besides Brazil speaks Spanish. Mm-hmm. A couple islands, the Caymans are English. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a sad shit. It didn't have to be that way. The British were like half and half. The French were the nice colonizers. Like they were there for business. Different British voyages had different ideas. Some wanted assimilation, wanted to live with the natives. And then some, like Ralph Lane and later Jamestown, they instantly went to conflict. And a lot of people died on both sides. And, the Americans lost the Pontiac War. They lost to Tecumseh. They were losing in the King Philip's War until smallpox hit. They lost to the Comanche. They lost 3 different armies disappeared chasing Red Cloud around. They lost the Crazy Horse. Like, the Indians won military battles over the United States. But disease was just... you can't kill off a whole population. If they stood still, you could. 150 million people died if you include from Canada all the way down to Argentina. Like a whole continent of people died within 100 years. that was the greatest plague in history, the smallpox. The Black Plague, you're looking at like a third of cities disappearing in Europe. That was bad. And nothing like this. This is extermination level event.
Wow, that's crazy. It's crazy how everything's been rewritten. Like they teach us everything wrong in schools.
School's such a crock. School's to teach you obedience. It's indoctrination.
It's from the Soviets, isn't it?
Well, Eddie Bernays and stuff had a hand in it too. It's basically to make factory workers. Like, we're not allowed to have serfs or slaves. We need wage slaves. So don't give them the good information.
Give them the bad information.
Get them lost in this academic minutia that is hard to do. Like, it takes a lot of mental prowess to memorize this stuff and do this, do that. But not practical. They don't teach you about money.
No.
Economics is an elective.
Yeah.
If that. You don't even get to see it until college.
And even
philosophy is an elective. But like English class, math class, you have your core subjects. If you fail, you can't even go to the next grade. But like home ec and economics, philosophy, health, like those are all secondary.
Yeah.
Health should be a primary subject.
Well, and they teach you the wrong stuff about health anyway.
Well, yeah, that's true too. Yeah. And then English class just becomes propaganda class because you're not really learning sentence dissection and grammar or anything at a certain point. Maybe you learn some vocabulary up to about 9th grade, but you're just in there reading Shakespeare and Macbeth and Why the Cage Bird Sing. There's a list of books they want to push in your head, and they all have the same themes. It's total indoctrination. And like the hours you put into school, like you do learn something. You can't put that much time in. Like you're not going to come up empty-handed, but you could learn so much more.
What did you do with your kids?
I'll tell you what I'm doing. And here's the clearest test about how bad school is foreign language. Almost everybody you know had X number of years of Spanish or French.
Yeah.
And none of them speak Spanish or French. And if they do, it's not from school. It's because their parent did it or they did themselves or they had a tutor or something else, right? They've traveled somewhere. But that's concrete because you can test easily if someone speaks a foreign language. We're like, tell me da-da-da-da in this language. And if they can't do it, right? Well, that's how bad it is in history and science and everything else. All the subjects are at that level. Yeah, you can count to 10 in Spanish and you can say, I want this, I like this. That's about it, right? That's where they learn what they actually said. All that time conjugating verbs and all the crap they do, that is not the way to teach a foreign language, and they know that's not the way to teach a foreign language. It's the way to do little tests, conjugate these verbs with these pronouns. You don't remember it. Like I learned Japanese when I was in Japan the hard way. I would have taken it in school, wasn't offered. And I learned French too. I no longer can speak French because I went so many years without using it at all. But I didn't learn it from school. We had a French au pair. My little sister did anyway. And I just talking to her all the time. That's what it came from.
Yeah.
School helped this much,
yeah.
this much, but not, I didn't have an au pair, but my sister did. There was a 12-year age gap. My brother and I got sent to boarding school at 15. See you kids,
Okay, but so they know that, but they want to keep you dumb. It's kind of like the same way.
I think it's George Carlin. Have you ever seen the comedian? He's like, just smart enough to read the road signs and run the machines.
Oh, so it's kind of like they don't teach slaves to read.
Right.
Because
that would have been the more valuable thing. Everyone should know how to read. They turn people off to reading, especially young boys. This is my brother and I have a big thing on this. My twin brother. I have another brother too, but I know a lot of guys that only read the books they were forced to read in school, and probably didn't read those. Just got Cliff Notes, whatever, read Catcher in the Rye or something. And then one day they read a book on something they're interested in, and they become a reader. Oh, this is what it's like. School puts it in your head reading sucks. And reading is not only important from the information you get, like reading a history book or something. Reading is intricately tied to your ability to have empathy and imagination. Because even if you're reading fiction, if you're reading Spider-Man, Harry Potter, whatever, you have to imagine what's going on in those books.
Mhm.
It's an active, and you have to have empathy for the characters, even though they're not real. Hermione's doing this and whatever's
Right.
going on in the story. You're imagining how they feel, how they're afraid, and they got to get out of this situation. Otherwise, the book is not interesting at all. Like if you don't, you are a participant in the story because you have to like think the fear, the joy, the sad, all that for the characters. But you're the only character because none of them exist. But it's a practice that you're learning when you read. You imagine the lands, you imagine the castles or New York or whatever the thing is in the story. This is what gives you the ability to empathize, to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Like if I'm going to imagine a Palestinian, he's lost his home, they knocked it down with a bulldozer, his kid's got his leg blown off, this kind of stuff. It makes me tear up. Like I have that ability because I've read a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like muscles. The more you practice imagination, the better you get at it. And the more solid your imagination is, the stronger your empathy and sympathy is.
Mm-hmm.
Empathy and sympathy are not just some automatic thing you have like happy, sad. It's something you have to practice, just like memory. Everyone's got a minimal amount of memory. Like everyone can remember something. Some people definitely have better memories than others. And it's not like, oh, you just have a good memory. No, they use their memory a lot. And it gets better. Just like your body, if you go to the gym, if you go to the gym one time, nothing happens. You don't notice anything.
Mm-hmm.
You do a memory exercise one time, it's not going to change anything. You got to do it over and over again, but it will build.
Mm-hmm.
And by making reading just so off-putting, I don't want to read Maya Angelou. I don't identify with that at 15.
Mm-hmm.
This thing, this woman,
Mm-hmm.
if they had given us books on anything,
Like Star
on
Trek.
armor, like I remember reading, I was interested in the different types of armor and weapons the Greeks used, or the Plutonic Wars with Hannibal and the Romans. They have this kind of arrow, so they need this kind of shield. Just anything. Like the Greeks used to dip leather in boiling wax so it'd be form-fitting to their muscles, and then they would put the bronze over that. And I liked learning about armor and weapons, whatever. Somebody else might like the cavalry and the horses and something. There's something interesting, definitely, but they never offered us. Little boys, especially, are into war and shit,
Yeah.
and you don't get it. Like they
So-
give you the most boring crap, like Scarlet Letter about some girl.
Do you think they should let kids just learn what they're interested in, like minus maybe basics?
I think
So you have
I would change the whole structure of everyone of the same age going bell to bell. Like
mhm.
it should be based on aptitude, and there should be a variety of things for them to read.
Mhm.
Pick one. Here's your list of 70. You only need one, but here's 70 books. Pick one.
Mm.
And do that one. That's what they do is in private school and thing. We read the Chocolate Wars and stuff like that. You could find things kind of related to your life, whatever. Because I don't think it matters what you read in the beginning. You just need to get good
Read
at
something.
it. Read anything to develop your imagination and your reading skills. Then there's definitely stuff you need to be told to read. It's important.
Yeah.
History, scientific literature, history, philosophy, art, and so on. That you kind of get forced into, fine. But you won't get that step if they just hate reading from 5 years old. They're like, oh,
I have an idea. I'll tell you what I want to do someday. I'm a creative, so I think. When I have kids, I want to get like a school that I can start, and it's like private people, but I want to make money off of them by making them YouTube channels where other kids can learn online. So like imagine, okay, I have these 3 little pearls. They're like so cute. Obviously, good looks run in the family. And and it's like
so your eyesight's bad too.
and so freaking they have like I can get like the top teachers because I'm me, obviously. And and I can just start YouTube channels for the kids wouldn't be in it, you know what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
like then you can make money and like pay the teachers off of the YouTube channels because they're like actually smart instead of these dumb teachers that are in all the schools. And obviously mostly men, like maybe one or two women,
You
but
do need
mostly
more males in elementary school.
yeah. No, I think
See,
it
they
should.
balance them out in Japan and in Korea too. The education system there is so much different.
Hmm.
All my kids are bilingual, and they, my 6-year-old is already doing algebra, like more advanced than that. Even he's very
Oh,
good
so one
at
option is to
math.
take your kids to Japan because
No,
the schools are good there.
no, just copy what they do. You
Yeah.
know, as a parent, there's a lot you can do. You need to read when kids are real little. You need to read to them. It's
Mm.
too frustrating for them to read. It's
Mm.
not fun because they, is this word? You need to read to them. And they can read along. What I like doing is I do story time, and they get to make up parts. I'll tell you a quick one. We've
Mhm.
been working on the Purple Castle. There's this white queen. Her whole castle's white. She's got this thing, and one morning she wakes up and it's just covered in purple. Somebody's rained down grapes and purple things all over, and she's so angry. She wants to figure out who did it. But red and blue could do it together. And so let's figure out the clues. So I give them the clues of where the wagon wheels go, where the grapes came from. And there's no answer because I'm making it up, you know.
Mm.
But they get to come up with what if they're framing the purple, but actually it's the green. They get into it and they're like, what happens next? And there's parts I have to guide through because kids can't just make up a story.
Mhm.
But you get them to a fork in the road and they choose whatever. And then you just keep making it up from whatever they choose.
Mhm.
They're like, what happens? What's chapter 3? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't made it up yet. Like, what's coming now? What's coming now?
Yeah.
Story time around the night is important, and important to let them use some creativity and all. And then you can start writing these things down. There's some stories we made up. Oh man, I should have made that a book. You know?
Yeah. Are you okay? You're like tearing up a little bit.
I'm thinking about the kids getting their legs blown off. Like I've seen so many videos of that, and I'm thinking about my own kids, how safe they are. I have felt guilt since October, like hugging my kids and having my kids are all healthy and nothing wrong, and I'm like, these families don't get this. They were fine one day, and then the Israelis come and just start blowing up their houses, and they have nowhere to go. They're just stuck. 90 kids die a day in Gaza.
Wow.
90. They're not. That's
That's insane.
more children have died in that war, and more journalists have been intentionally shot in that war than the entire Ukraine-Russia war, which stretches over hundreds of miles. This is a little 2-mile strip.
Mhm.
The Israelis have murdered more civilians by a factor of like 5 than the entire Russia-Ukraine war. They've killed more journalists than all wars everywhere else from 2020 to now combined. Because that's the first thing they
Does
get
it
rid
make you
of. They
feel
don't
like
want you to report on what they're doing. So if you have press, you might as well put a
oh,
bullseye on yourself.
that include me?
If you went to Gaza, they'd shoot you. Yeah,
Oh, okay. I'll not go there.
yeah. Like if you went even to the West Bank, they'll kill you. The Israelis kill journalists,
Wow.
and they can do it. They can get away with it, except for Twitter. It will
Mm.
not be reported. It'll be in Al Jazeera, and it'll be in foreign. It might be in Le Monde. It might be in the Guardian. It might be in a foreign paper, but it's not going to be in anything American. And that's all that matters, because that's who's paying for it, and that's who's arming it.
Do you think it'll end anytime soon?
Yeah, they're. It's actually going to end soon with Rafah, but my fear is the Israelis are so arrogant. They already attacked an Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria, assassinated generals, which is a great way to escalate a war. And from what I'm hearing from all these, well, if you look at the troop rotations of IDF, they're moving them north. I think Israel's preparing to attack Hezbollah in Lebanon. So this phase of the war ends and another one begins. Just more civilians going to get killed. But that war is going to be very different than Gaza. Because that happened in 2006. Lebanon already beat them once with a very little. They're stronger now than they've ever been, and they have more world support than they've ever had. U.S. has elections coming, so Biden can't go full in. Nobody can. Not only, even if the American public supported it, the world doesn't. And you just isolated yourself as a world leader. Like anybody supporting this slaughter, nobody agrees with it outside America. No one. It's not the Arab states or the Muslims. It's everybody. South Africa to Ireland to Japan, they're all against this. But America is enough. It's the wealthiest country by far, and they can pay for the whole thing. They send them all. They give them $4 to $5 billion a year automatic.
4 to 5 billion?
Mm-hmm. Like you could pay for a wall several times.
Wow.
Just give it away every year.
That's so much money.
Billion. And then they give them additional aid when they started this escapade. They flooded Al-Aqsa Mosque prior to October 7th, desecrated the holy sites. They'd been shooting people. They've been doing every manner of crime. And I think Hamas, they'd already done it. They tried to march for peace. Israelis would just shoot them unarmed, didn't care. They tried every negotiation possible. And they're just languishing in the dark, getting killed, and it's not even reported. When Jews got killed on October 7th, suddenly the cameras came on. And that was like a cold, calculated decision. We're like, we'll kill some of them. And then the world started paying attention. Well, 1,200 Jews were killed. Innocent people were taken hostage, including kids. I don't agree with that. I don't like Hamas. But you cannot collectively blame all of Palestine for what the government did. And if you look at Hamas's decision, what else were they supposed to do? Israel's killing them anyway. They needed to shock the world because they knew Israel would come and murder everybody. And they knew the world would see it. And they're like, this is the price to pay to freedom. All right. You're going to come blow up families like you always do. We know. But this will be the last time. There is no way this war can end without some sort of resolution for a real Palestinian state, which is what they've always wanted and deserved. There should be, well, there shouldn't be an Israeli state, but there is. There needs to be either one state with equal rights or two states, and the Palestinian state has rights states are supposed to have. So that means you can't come over and put on a blockade. You can't come over and bomb them whenever you want. They need right of return. Their diaspora should be allowed to live where they used to live. And equal human rights. It's that simple. You can't have an apartheid state. It's based on race, religion, or whatever. What Israel's doing is wrong. It's not that complicated. Stop bulldozing houses to make way for the self-proclaimed chosen race of God. You're not chosen by God. You cannot kill someone's child. Ever. I don't care what your fucking book says. Quit killing people. You're getting killed because you've been killing them for decades. They didn't do this out of the blue. No one wants to lose their family or get blown up by an Air Force. You've literally pushed them in a corner with nowhere to go and annexing their land and abusing them and murdering them and starving them. So you made October 7th inevitable. And it's what anyone else would do. If we just went to Florida or some American state and just said, only the so-and-sos can live here, and just started shooting people and knocking down houses, and we pushed them all the way down to Miami, and that's all that was left. Right? And we built a wall around it with guns. But if you did all the same things, like imagine if that happened to Jews. Imagine if they were the ones sitting in a cage
Mm.
with a wall around them, and all of their stuff had been taken. They were getting murdered, and their kids were getting humiliated, and their fathers could be arrested in the middle of the night, and they threw tear gas through their window at 2 in the morning, and all the things they do to Palestine. If that happened to Jews, the world wouldn't stand for it. It didn't stand for it. That sort of did happen to Jews. And the whole world ganged up on the Nazis. But the world can't do anything about Israel because America is that strong. They'll vote 141 to 1 sometimes in the UN, and the one vote for Israel is the United States. But because they're on the UN Security Council, they have veto power, and it doesn't matter what the world thinks, they can go fuck themselves. If America says no, the answer is no. They finally abstained once, and everyone else voted condemning Israel's genocide. Okay, UN condemns it, but what are you going to do? Are you going to go in there and are you going to invade Israel? Are you going to sanction them? Are you going to have any concrete punishment? No, just a bunch of finger waving nonsense. There have been businesses that decided to boycott them on their own. A Family Mart from Japan said, we're not doing business with Israel. Belgium, South Africa, Bolivia, Colombia, and I think Norway, they've cut off Israel completely. But
Yeah,
need
if
more
you're
than that.
being sent $5 billion
Yeah,
a year,
it doesn't matter.
yeah.
They're like, we get $5 billion from America. We don't need the rest of you.
Right.
They have lost sea access because of the Houthi in the south. And I think the Iraqi resistance will probably concentrate on Haifa to knock out their northern maritime trade and isolate Israel. That will be the next move for their side. This is why Israel's also moving north. And they're going to end up biting more often than they can chew. And you think, isn't that good? Israel will get their comeuppance. I'm like, maybe the very end result will be better for Israel to get smacked. But look at the price you have to pay for that to happen. Because I'll tell you what Israel will do when they're losing the war. They'll just bomb Beirut, start killing civilians. That's what they're good at. I don't want all those people in Lebanon to die. And they will. Because 100% Israel doesn't care about human life. And they will just bomb Beirut because they can. And if Iran jumps in, so does the United States. Like, they can't win. And the only thing that can stop America is Americans. Like, we need to stop being so ignorant about the whole situation. And then we have to realize this goes beyond Palestine. We wouldn't have been in Iraq or Syria either if this had been solved. And it needs to be the issue. End aid to Israel so they can't recycle that back on bribes and blackmail. That's one big thing. And the second biggest thing, and what would lead to ending aid to Israel, is having honest media. It's got to be more than just Twitter and Rumble. You know, like, we really need to build alternative media. And that's why I think promoting influencers, for lack of a better term, who do this shit, who are, whether they're on Rumble or whatever, maybe they still have YouTube, they're the ones, like, put on the front line. Like, this is where the media is going to come from. Those people have to do well. Because as they do well, and other people look at that, they go, oh, that person talked about Israel and his life wasn't ruined.
Yeah.
Maybe I can do it.
Yeah.
And once that snowball gets going, and it kind of already is, because in October 7th, nobody's talking about this. It got so bad so fast. I'm seeing all these Palestine advocates who just sort of learned about this year, which is fine. They're all over the place. You know, like Jake Shields, these people, they're just nailing it. Yeah. I wish I had you 10 years ago, but hey, they weren't able to get this information until Elon lifted the covers. Then I can influence people who influence people. I can get on X and drop all these films and things. Then you get all these new faces talking about this and talking about it in detail. I'll go to TikTok and see teenagers talking about the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin and going into the whole thing. And I'm like, wow, all you had to do is free up the media. There's a lot of really intelligent people. It's just most of them, they don't have that fourth element, the courage thing. Like, I don't want to wreck my life. I'm too stupid. I'm like, I'm too principled maybe. I'm like, yeah, I know I'm going to get did. But there's things more important than money. And I think eventually people will be able to do both. I think the media is changing. I think the whole climate is changing. That's why they're trying to ban TikTok in the United States. They know that if they lose the monopoly on media, it all falls
It all
apart. It
crumbles.
all crumbles.
That's why they're coming for Elon so hard.
They took out his ads. They put him on the tour of Auschwitz and the
Yeah.
baby crib and stuff.
Wow.
You know, and like he didn't cave, but he's white. He is not. People can knock him because he's not Ron Paul. He's not as principled as that. Nobody is. Like he's doing pretty good, better than any other giant billionaire owner of anything. Like where do you see that kind of freedom? Then you got like Rumble, but Rumble has a lot less to lose. Like their company, they ain't $44 billion. You know,
Yeah.
like Elon's got a lot more to lose and a lot more eyeballs. But I support Rumble and Odyssey and Telegram, all these other things. But let's be realistic. Like we need to flip a Facebook or YouTube to really reach people, or build Rumble up to even 10% of YouTube's level, and it'd be over. That's where it is. Or like you made your own website, and why? Because you know, if we did this on YouTube, instant cancel. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and even I want it behind a paywall, because then I think you can like sue people if they take out content from behind a paywall. They can't do that.
Yeah.
And then I can put clips so they can't. Yeah, get out of here, you effers. Because some people they just want, I don't know, they just want to cancel you. But thank you very much for coming on. I can see you're really passionate about what you do.
This is really not a grift or anything. Like I've lost money doing this. I've lost opportunities. I could have joined the other team and just been a CNN shill like Destiny or something and roll it in the money. But I'm like, no, because that's bullshit. Like you're lying to people and you're hurting people with these lies. You're not there, but like go there and look at what's happening in the Middle East or, you know, many of these places that I didn't even talk about Burma today, but like there's just shit happening that we could fix. And the people with the money and reach to fix it aren't speaking out. And the ones that do, they get the Tate treatment. Let's just say you rape somebody and go to jail, ruin their reputations. But man, the good conversation. Thanks for having me. I think I'm on Team Elon, man. I think that guy, he's at war with Brazil. He's like, we're not doing this. I'm having free speech. If you make us do this censorship that they want, he's going to release everything they requested. They want to ban this person, this person, this person, this person. I'm like, good, do that. Let them tell us who they're afraid of, that we know who to support.
Where can people support your work? What's the best place to find you? Can they donate to your stuff, or like what?
I mean, I like this shirt I'm wearing. I sell this, but like I have the anti-neocon report is called ancreport.com. My Twitter is Rye Liberty, all one word, RY Liberty. Everyone should see the pinned tweet that's pinned right now. It's a 12-minute video on their weak spots, the bribery and the blackmail, and how you can end it. Because people are like, what can we do? Like, watch that and it'll tell you exactly where their soft spots are. This is fixable. And that's really it. I have Twitter and a website. I have a Telegram, but everything they can get access through the website.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. You're a really smart guy. It's like you like know everything about
just at certain things. I'm dumb at other things, you know. I think that's how most people are.
Yeah. Guys, make sure you subscribe to the Audacity Network. You can support us here for $10 a month. That's it. And it helps us be able to bring on more creators that have been canceled off of everything. You know, a lot of people are too scared to bring these people on. We're not here, but we do need public support. This is the first network that is funded by the people, for the people. So make sure you guys sign up, like the video on your way out, and make sure you subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys next time.